This is the RPM Podcast, starring Eric Brennan,
created solely to make women cry,
Sam Ballard Jr.,
Therapy, lobotomy, Jesus, mix it all in.
Scott Riggleman,
fungus-faced toad sucker, yellow-bellied gutless slug,
and Josh Matthews.
Dude, I'm such a jerk. It's ridiculous.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the RPM Podcast. Happy to be back from the West Coast. Had a good time. Joined today by our traditional cast characters now, coming to us from the University of North Carolina in Charlotte. We got Sam Ballard Jr. Sam, what's up?
How you doing?
Good. How you doing?
I'm doing peachy.
In the Matthews Family Studios, we have producer Josh, and we also have the spotter for Eric Goodell in the Nascar Wheel and Modified Tour, and apparently a number of other drivers as well, as he had his hands full this past week at the IceBreaker. Tim Riggleman, how you guys doing over there?
Tim gets around, it sounds like.
I'm doing good, thank you.
In a good way. And then at the Edge of Divorce Motorsports Studios, we also have driver the number 09 factory stock at Wall Stadium Speedway, Scott Riggleman. What's up, Scott?
What's up, guys? Glad to be back and talking racing on another Tuesday night.
Scott, did you practice on Saturday?
Yeah, I was there.
Okay, I didn't get to make it. I took my kid ice skating for the first time, so.
Yeah, we had both cars there. Nancy also was able to sneak out of work for a couple hours and come over and practice. I practiced, she practiced. Cars ran great, and they're ready to go for opening night.
Awesome.
And
I'm sorry, Eric. I was going to say, out of the cars that you saw there, who do you think is, other than yourself, who do you think's got some hot equipment?
I mean, there was only about 8 or 9 factory stocks there. I tell you what, everybody seemed really fast, though. I mean, everybody was either 16.0s or in the 15s. I mean, Haberstick did a 16.0. I got down to the 15.9s. The O'Shea kid was doing 15.9s. I mean, yeah, everybody seemed pretty fast. It's going to be tough over there this year. And I know we start off with the NASCAR stuff, but I'm afraid everybody's going to be so fast the racing might get boring in our division. It might turn in kind of like the modified racing, I hope it stays competitive, and I hope we can still go 2 wide and 3 wide,
You're saying that it'll get too fast where they have to run single file, not where everybody's going to be fast and everybody's going to be packed together and,
Yeah, I think it's going to be more whoever starts in front of the other person. I think it's going to where if everybody keeps doing the same lap times, it's going to be kind of like what the modifieds do,
What about putting some VHT or a tire drag?
Oh, they had it down. They were laying that stuff down already. They gooped up pretty good. Like I told you the last show, they bought the spray truck from Raceway Park, and they're putting that stuff down. I personally, I don't like this stuff. You know what it does when you come off the corner? It makes your front tires chatter. You get up on the
it grabs until it
grabs and it makes it chatter. And Nancy came in, she's like, "It's got the front end's chattering." I checked all the nuts and bolts, make sure all the ball joints and tie rods were tight. Everything was tight. When I took my car out, I'm like, "Wow, mine's chattering too." And the only thing I could narrow it down to is the stuff they put on the track.
Okay. Was it only in the higher lanes? Eric, we'll move on in just a second.
Yeah, I mean, it is in the higher lanes, but even when you go low in the corner, you kind of got to cross over it when you get up.
So they picked literally a lane
in the corner going up towards the wall, so you're up high on the front straightaway. You kind of cross over, and that's when your front tires start chattering a little bit.
Okay, so it's more on entry than if you're running kind of a single car line.
No, coming off kind of more like
more off. Okay.
Yeah, but who knows? It might they might not put down too much next time, or there wasn't that many cars at practice again. So when we get all the divisions there with all the cars, it'll probably wear off quicker. You know what I'm saying? But I didn't notice in the first few practices my tires did chatter, and then it kind of went away. Like the stuff, wore off a little bit.
Okay. All right, Eric. Now you can take it away. You have my permission.
Thank you, sir. Now, the best news that we have as far as what's upcoming is so far the weather forecast for this Saturday looks gorgeous. So we'll talk more about that a little bit later on. Scott mentioned tires. We're going to talk about that, actually, what happened in the Monster Energy Cup Series race in Texas. Tires was a big topic of conversation, especially with the number of tire failures that we saw, most notably Martin Truex Jr. and also Kyle Larson. However, the race went on, a lot of wrecks, surprising finishes for a number of guys, including Darrell Wallace Jr., ended up in 8th. Ross Chastain had a top 20 finish. A bunch of guys ended up with really good runs with all the carnage that took place. But the big story was Kyle Busch finally got that win that seemed to have eluded him after he seemed to finish second in almost every race so far this season. The race at Texas, another 1.5-mile track. Of course, the track was reconfigured about 2 years ago to try to change the dynamic of the racing. but it kind of neutered the facility. And despite, we talked about the Tire Dragon a little bit earlier, maybe being used in some short tracks, despite the use of the Tire Dragon, the second lane just never seemed to come in. And thus the race kind of unfolded the way it did, a little bit chaotic. In the grand scheme of things, I got to see a more condensed version of the race because I was away. But it seems like, despite the fact that it was hard to pass, the storylines with everybody having trouble made the race rather compelling. And Kyle Busch did walk away with the win at the end. Harvick kept him honest. But overall, it seemed like a decent product. Some people dubbing the Texas race, due to the topsy-turvy nature of it, one of the best of the season. So with that, I will turn it over to our panel of judges. Sam, I see you crutching at your heart. That term best race of the season doesn't sit well with you, though, does it?
NASCAR fans are stupid. I mean, come on. Just because they see a bunch of big wrecks, thank you, Josh. Just because they see a bunch of wrecks, they think NASCAR is good again. I'll tell you what's good is the new left side tire that Goodyear brought didn't do anything stupid like it normally did. As my friend Christian Hicks brought up in class Monday, it wasn't that bad if you think of the 2008 Brickyard race that NASCAR had. So, I mean, you got to pick your battles.
Now, in terms of how the race unfolded itself, Goodyear's response to some of the tire failures was that teams were rather aggressive with camber setup, which is something that we hear before. It just seems to be like a finger-pointing match as to who's really to blame. Another driver got caught out by a tire failure late in the running was Ryan Newman, who had a solid run going. But we talk about the craziness of the finishing order. I mean, at Darrell Wallace Jr., 8th, William Byron, 10th, Trevor Bayne, 12th, Micah McDowell in the front row racing number 34 car, 14th, Chris Buescher, 15th, Matt DiBenedetto, 16th, Casey Kane, Ross Chastain, Cole Witt, and Greg Galding, all with top 20 finishes because of how many heavy hitters were involved in accidents.
Yeah,
now,
you left Josh's favorite team out, the Starcom team with Landon Castle. They finished 21st. They had their best finish of the year. So Josh is doing great, the 00.
And that may have linked Landon Castle to that ride for the rest of the year. If what he calls Uncle Derek gives him the nod, he'll at least be in the car for Bristol. But another mile and a half has come and gone. And, we'll have to see how it continues to unfold throughout the rest of the season. Scott, crazy when we have that many incidents in a race. I don't know if it necessarily makes the product good or entertaining. But seeing Kyle Busch finally get that win, that was something that everybody was wondering when it was going to happen. And if it didn't happen, if it would start to kind of tear that team apart from the inside out, I guess we're never going to know, because he's kind of putting himself up there as the point leader. Now with this win, maybe it's a favorite as we continue to go forward through the season.
I mean, Kyle Busch is off to a great start. Everybody was, talking, Kyle himself was disappointed this year because he hasn't got the win and keeps finishing second. But man, there's a lot of people in this world that would love to finish second in a cup race and have, a great start to the season like he has. He's got a bunch of seconds, and now he does have the win to cap it off, and he has the trophy to bring home. He's off to a great start. It was a great race. Another thing I want to mention, Jamie McMurray had a great run in that race too. When some people complain about the race ain't going well or it's not exciting, I pick out a driver who's having a good run and you follow him and through it to see if he can close the deal. So I noticed Jamie was running good. So I paid attention to him the whole race to see if he could close the deal out and complete the race and finish up front. And he did. I think he finished third, and that was a great run for him. He needed that.
Yeah, solid run, especially if you consider the fact that we all kind of imagine that Kyle Larson would be more of a threat than he has so far this year, and it seems like he's just been finding a lot of bad luck. So McMurray carrying the banner for that team was a big deal. Pit guns, the story again, and even though Harvick came back to finish second, the pit gun problem was the only thing they had. They actually had a lug nut come off one of the front tires and land inside the jack, preventing them from being able to let the car down fast enough.
All right,
that was the reason for
that is not a pit gun issue. That is a rogue nut issue.
Yeah, they couldn't do that again if they tried. They could try 10,000 pit stops and try to do that on purpose, and they'd never be able to do it. How great was the camera work on that, though, man? They catch that, and they played slow. You could see it like you were standing right there. Well, what great work by the camera crew with that.
It's almost like they caught properly.
Yeah, that too. And then obviously Harvick's team having problems later on with the pit guns. Harvick and his crew chief Rodney Childers both quoted as saying that they're very unhappy with the policy that they're in. However, Cole Pern, Martin Truex Jr.'s crew chief, fired back saying that Harvick's team in the Race Teams Alliance organization of the RTA was actually one of the teams that voted in favor of the switch to mandate pit guns across the board, or at least maybe to somewhat make them all the same.
You're allowed to regret your decision. There's nothing wrong with that.
This
But he had bad pit stops throughout the whole race. I mean, you think about the now. I know there was controversy about uncontrolled tires, but wasn't Harvick's guy that also fell over the wall trying to get the tire?
That was funny. How funny was that?
I couldn't help but laugh. Yeah, I mean, you almost feel bad for the guy. I mean, he was trying to do it so it didn't become an uncontrolled tire. That particular one.
I mean, I feel bad for the guy because he's probably on the unemployment line right now.
Yeah.
Starcom will hire him. Don't worry about it. Starcom will bring him right in.
Morgan Shepherd's always looking at hiring pit crew
Morgan
guys.
Shepherd's always looking for volunteers.
Yes.
Go Jesus.
So Texas kind of in the books. Josh, Tim, I don't know. Tim, I know you were at Thompson, so you probably didn't get to see much of the race. But final thoughts on Texas as a whole?
Well, I just about the uncontrolled tire penalties that through that Hawkeye crap system, and
thank you, Josh.
Yeah, with Harvick having now, I think there was an argument over a tire being stationary versus rolling that was made. I mean, NASCAR, to their credit, I guess, admitted that they should have called it, after the fact, but. Still, I don't know what your thoughts were on that.
Just to catch everybody up, if you're not familiar with what we're talking about. So earlier in the race, Ryan Blaney was penalized for an uncontrolled tire. And of course, some of us are a little bit biased because our buddy Ryan Flores is on that pit team. They were penalized for an uncontrolled tire violation. A little bit later on, Kevin Harvick's team seemed to almost have a carbon copy situation unfold. However, it was deemed a judgment call. Those types of mistakes on the pit lane are deemed a judgment call. I don't believe the Hawkeye system could catch that.
Unless
like
it
a car
rolled out of the box
or
something. Yeah.
Right. And Harvick was let go. NASCAR's head of competition director, Scott Miller, later came out after the race and said, hey, we missed the call on that one. As Josh said, owning up to responsibility of it. Here's my question. For the sanctioning body, is that acceptable to come on out later on and say, oops, we made a mistake? Or is the series at a point where these mistakes cannot be made? So I'm curious where you guys stand on that side of the fence. And Scott, I'll start with you.
I mean, you'll always have human error. We see it in the NFL. How many times have we seen the refs in the NFL make mistakes? Baseball too. I mean, it's going to happen. No matter what, it's such a big sport, and there's so many officials working there. You can have all the reviews and playbacks you have. You're still going to have human error every once in a while. Was it that big of a deal? No, I hate that rule anyway. I mean, the tire rolled a little out of the box. They grabbed it. It was really no big deal. I was kind of happy to see him not get penalized, but you're right. They should stay consistent with the call,
Let's make it like basketball where they have to dribble the tire back and, the traveling penalty or something. I don't know.
See,
what is the penalty for leaving the box? Would have had to start in the tail end of the lead lap cars, or would have been that big of was it a pass-through penalty? What is the penalty?
I believe if it's under caution, it's tail end of the longest line. I believe it's under green. It's a pass-through. So the penalties are a little bit different, green or yellow.
Was it under green or was it under yellow?
I don't recall. I just happened to catch the highlights on it, so I apologize for being misinformed or uninformed or just uneducated, whatever you want to call it. But either way, the way I see it, I like the fact there's still a human element in sports, whether it be stick and ball sports or NASCAR. In fact, I don't like that they removed a lot of that human element with the Hawkeye system. With that, I don't want to see over officiating taking place. And I'll liken this back to the pick gun thing. I was listening to another podcast, and Josh, we're not going to talk about this one for the entire episode, but it happened to be door bumper clear. And Flint Boyer spotted Brett Griffin in regards to the pick gun situation, kind of tried to liken it to the fact that every pit stop could hinge on the fact of, where a driver finishes, if they get sponsorship dollars, if people keep their jobs. If we're going to narrow it down that much, then you can say the same about some of these ball and strike calls, air quotes, that we're seeing maybe get hit or miss. And I don't want to scrutinize things that much because we need that human element in the sport. If everything becomes digital and everything becomes black and white, the gray area is where we get to have a little bit of fun. And it's what makes these things so much more, opportune to talk about. I don't mind seeing it. I respect NASCAR for owning up to their mistake. And hopefully they learn from it. And going forward, we can now define what an uncontrolled tire actually is and officiate it properly. So,
you know what kind of made the call seem even more weird that they didn't get penalized is when the NASCAR official working Kevin Harvick's pit spot told him that they weren't getting penalized, the guys on his pit crew were high-fiving the NASCAR official and punching knuckles with the guy. It was like, oh my God, did this guy just get paid off or something? That made it look kind of weird. The official should not be high-fiving the pit crew,
Yeah, that certainly was a bad optic.
It is, but here's the thing. Sam works as an official at the track.
Why do you got to pull my cover like that, Josh?
Yeah. And I,
barely an official, let's face it. I mean,
all right, fine,
barely. Cars up in the pits.
He's lower on the lower end, but at the same time, as I'm, going out onto the track or whatever, I either try to run him over or point at him or something like that. I mean, I'm friends with him off the track, but so do I have to not drive, or does he have to be fired because I'm friends with him?
No, I understand. I mean, as long as he's checking your underwear, right, and making sure that you get your fireproof underwear, I mean, he's not crossing the line.
Yeah, I don't.
I mean, that's the biggest highlight of his day is checking up my sleeve to make sure I have my fireproof underwear on.
Right, and then to find out when Scott doesn't wear his underwear, which never happens, I get I go and tell Nancy.
Now, do the NASCAR officials that monitor, do they monitor the same team every week, or does it go by?
I think they're randomly assigned to different crews. But at the same time, if you travel enough with them, you're going to get to know the guys.
Right. You're going to end up knowing some of the people that you're working with.
It is a small circle, so, you are going to get to know everybody. Same with us at Wall Stadium. I mean, we all know each other, officials,
exactly,
fans, race drivers.
Right. And just for a full disclosure, I applied to NASCAR probably about 8 months ago. Haven't heard a word back. So I'm not.
They probably listen to the show. Real quick, Elliott, Choke Elliott. Anybody see the pictures of his roof?
I did. The Reddit police were at it again, so Kevin Harvick can be happy that the pressure's off his back. It looks as though that Elliott's car had a dent about in the same spot that Harvick's did after the win in Las Vegas.
So is there going to be a penalty, do you guys think, or is it going to be what do you think's going to come of that?
Well, NASCAR did take about 6 cars back to the R&D center for wind tunnel testing, which is something that they didn't do last year, but they used to do it every year, I guess, to try to see what the numbers look like per manufactured car. I'm not sure if Elliott's was one of them. If Elliott's is one of them that goes back to the R&D center, which I don't think it would be unless that was kind of like a random thing. Elliott finished 11th, so if they brought it back to the R&D center and they found that a bracket failed like they accused Harvick's team in Vegas, then I would expect a penalty. If not, then they may have got away with one, but maybe this is something they need to look into a little bit further.
High five, NASCAR
now,
officials.
They don't have to go. I know you have to try to figure out a way for tolerance for race damage, but, I mean, they have to go through that what was it, Eagle Eye? What the hell is the name for the camera system for the pre-race tech?
Isn't it like the Haas or something like that, or OSS or something like
that?
Yeah,
that's I think the OSS or something like that. Yeah.
So you have that, and Larson failed that 3 times, I believe. The pre-race.
Yeah, everybody's been failing those things because it's.
Well, no, I'm not saying it's out of the ordinary. I'm just saying that he did. So whatever. It's Larson, so good. But there's nothing that happens after the race other than making sure their nuts are tight.
Well, that's a problem that we all have every now and then. But
speak for yourself.
As far as what happens with the Elliott thing, I'm not exactly sure. But Texas in the books, they're getting ready to move on to Bristol. There are 2 bits of industry news on the NASCAR side that I wanted to get into, and one of which was the fact that it was announced today that Monster Energy has re-signed with NASCAR, but only for 1 year, which is kind of weird, right? It's kind of like being in a marriage and saying, you know what, we're not going to get divorced this year. Let's just wait 1 more year. And even more, the rhetoric is really weird from an ESPN article. That was well. Here's the one thing that caught my eye. According to Bob Pockrass of ESPN, an interview with the series chief operating officer Steve Phelps quoted him as saying it is highly unlikely that the partnership would continue anywhere beyond 2019. Phelps said, actually, I wouldn't suggest the entitlement is not working, but we want to make sure our sport is as easy or easier to do business with. Our competitive advantage is that our fans understand the importance of sponsorship and they go out and support our sponsors. We just think that this is a better model and to be able to make sure that the sponsors want to stay involved more broadly. We feel that there is an opportunity to feel more invested in the sport, and I'm not just talking financially and what they're paying different entities, but more invested in the sports that they will then turn around and do more activation position and feel like this position is an ownership position that they have. So it almost sounds like Phelps is unhappy that Monster isn't putting out the job which they are compared to some of their other ventures. It also sounds like NASCAR is exploring the opportunity of maybe not even having a presenting sponsor and utilizing that sponsorship dollar and value in different ways. No idea what that means. But this is weird. It's weird because I kind of like what Monster's been doing with the sport up to this point. And, not just the Monster Girls or anything like that, but just I think it fits. The fact
you had to specify that, huh?
I just don't understand it. It's like paying a prostitute to wash your car. You just let them do what they need to do best. I don't understand.
There's definitely seems like there's tension between the two companies, between NASCAR and Monster, right? It seems like they wanted, like NASCAR definitely wants to take their $20 million a year, and Monster definitely wants to be involved in the sport. But it definitely seems like there is tension between the two, and they're not able to do what they want.
It's like going on a first date with Eric, I think. They don't want to get too close.
They usually go pretty good. Even more interesting is the fact that when you listen to Monster's side of it, their vice president of sports marketing, Mitch Covington, said, "I'm very interested in seeing the new model. We're just deep in the sport, in supporting the sport. We definitely want a front row seat to see the new model." Right. I won't use the word difficult in terms of describing the deal in its current form. It's complex in the fact there are so many entities to deal with, but we've been in it long enough, and we feel like we're navigating the sport quite well. So it almost sounds like they want to stick around while NASCAR is kind of like, you know what? It's just odd. It's the whole thing is odd. And we talk about bad optics. I think this is a bad optic. If you report this to the mainstream media and you say, hey, there's this business deal that was just made, Monster Energy sponsoring NASCAR, but only for an additional year on their contract, 2019, and it's highly unlikely they're going to come back after that. Right. That just sounds ugly. It just doesn't make any sense to me.
It sounded weird to me. I was disappointed when the news came out that they only re-up for 1 year. I was hoping for like a 5-year, $100 million deal or something like that, something big, something we can grab onto and know we're secure for a while. But then when more news came out and they said, NASCAR's thinking about remodeling the way they do it, then it kind of made sense. The race team's already done that. The race teams used to shoot for a full season sponsor and go with that. Now they're breaking it up into parts. I think NASCAR's looking to do something like that next year, breaking it up into parts of the season.
Could this actually be a good thing? Hang on, hear me out on this. It's going to sound twisted, but almost like on the brink of destruction or the demise of the top series for NASCAR, if they lose Monster and if nobody else signs on, I mean, you only have contingency sponsors and such. Basically, saying, look, we can't even get advertisers for this, what we're looking for now. We're going to have to really rethink this and almost start over.
I disagree with that. It's more like they kind of want to be like NFL or hockey, where hockey, they've always had the Stanley Cup, and it's been that cup, and that's the trophy you shoot for. And I think in football, it's the Vince Lombardi trophy, and they shoot for that. It's almost like they want to be their own brand and just bring in sponsors like NFL does, but they don't want a sponsor that's so big that they take over the whole division,
Right. And to that point, Scott, it also sounds like that they want to try to keep these sponsorship deals in place, unified across all the different racetracks, because, one track may be sponsored by Coke, the other track may be sponsored by Pepsi. It sounds like they want the same image all across the 36 race schedule with the same branding partners. But at the same time, it also sounds like
just doesn't want to do any more work.
That too. But it also sounds like
it is a lot of work, though. I mean, I remember me and Nancy were at an IROC race, and when they had Crown Royal sponsoring them, and it was weird because it was like you're out there IROC race, and there's Crown Royal signage all over the place. Like it's all Crown Royal, Crown Royal, Crown Royal. The next day you show up at the track, there's no Crown Royal stuff because now the IROC race is over with, and they don't want people to see the signs when the NASCAR cars are out on it. So they had to take all that signage down. I mean, there's a lot behind the scenes that goes on, and I think that's what Monster's talking about they're dealing with right now.
So hopefully it's a revolutionary idea, and it's not just NASCAR, being a person who was single for so long, they just suddenly decide they want to stay single. So we'll see if it pans out that way.
Hashtag Eric
That's what reminds me.
Hashtag Brian France.
The other bit of industry news that came down, it also involves 1.5 mile tracks. Speculation, which it appears will be announced tomorrow, maybe by the time many of you are listening to this podcast, for the All-Star race. Sounds as though that NASCAR is going to be exploring the idea of outfitting the cars with restrictor plates. Now,
I don't like that one bit.
Part of this is off of an aero package which they debuted in the Xfinity Series at Indianapolis and Michigan last year. Now, granted, it seemed to have a little bit of an uptick in competitive nature at Indy. Sounds like they want to do it on the Cup side. Some of the rumored speeds, though, or top speeds we could expect to see, only as high as about 170 miles an hour, where if you think back to when the cars were qualifying at Charlotte at the end of last year, they were over 190 average. I don't know what this is going to do to the racing. I don't expect it to turn into the pack style of racing that we see at Daytona and Talladega, but it could certainly be different, or it could turn out like New Hampshire back in 2000 when they tried this on a smaller track.
When Jeff
and it just didn't work out.
led all 300 laps,
Scott, do you admire them for trying something different, being it that the 1.5 mile product is laboring, or is this just the wrong way to go?
I don't like it. I mean, I like my race cars fast, and they keep taking the power away from them, and it's an all-star race. I'd open the rules up more, let them experiment, kind of what like Abraham did when he bought that, what was it, T-Rex car or whatever,
Yep.
Let them do that. Now they're clipping, they're clipping their wings again, let these guys fly, let them race, man, and stop taking power away from them.
I don't know.
Now, Josh,
I'm kind of the opposite to Scott, because I'd watch a bunch of lawnmowers with low horsepower that kind of like when we go down to Millville and race the arrive and drive carts. And Sam and Eric, you've been part of that with us.
Yep.
And
I got raped doing that. You guys don't know how to drive.
Well, that was your cousin's doing, but the thing is, those things are like only 9 horsepower motors. You got to keep them wound up. It's about driving them, and running the line, and working the people that are around you. It's not about power, and that's the gorgeous thing of it. I mean, I know not all the karts are perfectly equal. They're far from that, but with all the karts being kind of slow, everybody gets to duke it out and have fun.
I'm not trying to
and I understand that when a bunch of amateurs go with their friends to have fun, but when you're talking about a premier series with the best racers in the world, I don't want to see them slowing down and have fun. I want to see them going fast and racing hard.
All right, maybe I shouldn't have added the fun part, but I would argue that, like I said before, it's so much about driving them and running the proper line and being a consistent, good driver. In the cars, you can still slide them around and all that. I'm not saying that, they're going to just be glued to the track, and on a rail. I think you need to drive them and be a good driver on top of that. And I admire that. And that's what
it could be worse. They could be trying to run the cars on the Roval at Charlotte. Oh, wait, they're already doing that too. So now they got restrictor plates at Charlotte and they're running a Roval. Why don't we just not go to Charlotte at all if it's that bad of a track? You know what I'm saying?
I'm curious.
I don't like the gimmick stuff in racing. I think by them throwing the restrictor plates on, it's kind of like a gimmick.
I'm curious to see what the product looks like. And if it comes down to where all 21 cars at the end of the All-Star race are packed into groups of like 4 wide, for like 5 rows deep, then it may be a sight to see, but I don't know if it's
that Indy Lights finish that was amazing at Indy.
Yeah, but that was authentic. That was like, how did this happen? This is more like, I don't know. But then again, it wasn't like that with the Xfinity cars. They were more grouped together, and it was hard. But it was almost harder to pass because speed differential is what creates passing. If you're running restrictor plates, and everybody's running the same speed. It's almost like Daytona and Talladega. There's more shuffling going on than passing because once you get alongside somebody at the front, you can't really drive away.
That's still exciting to watch. It doesn't.
That's the thing. It is. I can't turn away.
Like, what was it when Jimmy Johnson tried to do that 4 wide and then overshot it and ended up in the wall?
That was at the Brickyard. That was Brickyard 400 last year.
Yeah.
When his engine was blowing up and he was going to win the damn race with a blown engine. Yeah, suck on that, Jimmy Johnson haters.
That was 0 to 0 real fast.
You know what's weird? They're kind of making it now like the other all-star games in the other sports and stick and ball sports. Like now they're taking a restrictor plate and putting them on our cars to slow our guys down in an all-star race. If you ever watch the NFL all-star games, those guys don't even play hard. They play like about 75% because they don't want to get injured for a game that really doesn't mean anything to them.
Because if they stub their toe.
You ever watch an all-star game for baseball, it turns into like a home run derby because the pitcher ain't throwing hard because he don't want to throw his arm out. They're playing at 75% too. Now they're kind of knocking us down to 75%, and I don't like that. I like I want the all-star race to be exciting and fast. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think the restrictor plate's the answer.
I want to do that option tire again, or the thing where the top guys have to run on the old tires and the new guys get 2 new tires or something. Or I don't know. We can have a lot of fun. How's that All-Star Race generator working?
I haven't pulled it up yet, but I'm gonna have to look that up. That was from Steve Lovender. So let's see how that works out. We expect the official announcement to be tomorrow, but with that, it's kind of I don't know where it's gonna go. Also, I see it on my show sheet here that Ricky Stenhouse kind of upgraded a little bit. Got a new girlfriend by his side to start the race. As long as we stop wrecking the cars in practice, I think he'd be okay. Maybe that's why. Maybe he's all jacked up on Sunny D and his new wifey, and that's why he can't keep a car on one
No,
piece
he's
before
giving her the Sunny D. Come on, Eric. Anyway, real
Typically,
quick.
my nieces listen to this show.
No, talk about the Sunny D to drink. The NASCAR All-Star Race formatter was round 1, 15 minutes. Finish line must be crossed on by foot. Round 2, crash clock is not in effect. Finishing position is in the previous segment is the size of your spoiler, and then the fan encourages to toss beer cans onto the track for the final round. I mean, I think that sounds fantastic.
Hysterical. Absolutely hysterical. Just put a period on the Texas weekend. Xfinity Series ran. Ryan Blaney kept the winning streak intact for the number 22 Penske car. Pretty much a dominated performance by him, although he did have one spectacular save on a late race restart. McMurray rebounded from a spin to come back and finish quite well to round out the good run that Scott gave him a shout-out for earlier.
Yeah, I think he finished 7th with a pretty badly damaged car, so that was a great run for him.
And also Morgan Shepherd, after getting so much flack for starting and parking, after making all these starts, ended up finishing 28th. So that's pretty impressive.
I think it was his 1,000th NASCAR career start too. 1,000 start. Yeah, 1,000 starts in NASCAR. It's pretty
Real
amazing. Quick,
Dave Blaney ended up winning a dirt race like a half an hour after Ryan Blaney did. Thought that was pretty
Port
cool.
Royal Speedway.
Where did my future wife end up finishing in the ARCA race?
11th. Natalie Decker.
Yeah,
she was 11th.
Yeah,
She was never really a factor though. She really hung out around between 10th and 15th all day long. She really never got up there and mixed it up at all.
I was just gonna watch her. It don't matter.
Yeah. Well, I think we all would. The last stock car topic we're going to talk about.
She's still in high school.
Is
she's over
18, isn't she?
Oh, God, I'm sorry, Natalie.
I just want to make sure it's okay to talk like this because now you get me nervous. All right, so while our listeners dial up 911, ARCA was in fact in Nashville, and Zane Smith ended up grabbing the win. ARCA was on hold forever, it seemed, ever since the race at Daytona.
Yep. They had to rebuild all the cars.
Yeah. Local driver Brandon Grosso made his debut. Remember, he was allowed to start and park at Daytona, but he wasn't old enough to compete at Daytona, so he was able to get last place points with that run. Now teamed up with the Ken Schrader Racing team. Grosso got to hit the track, finished 9th in his first ever ARCA start. So that's pretty impressive. And good job, Brandon. We're proud of you. And as we mentioned earlier, our favorite female driver, Natalie Decker, ended up 11th. So that pretty much does it for all the stock car stuff that was going on. As Xfinity and Cup will be off to Bristol. And that's pretty much that. Anybody have anything else on Texas?
I did watch the ARCA race. It was a pretty good race. Those guys were racing pretty hard, and that track was awesome. The Nashville Fairgrounds track. It's like they consider it a short track, but it's a big short track, and it's racy. It's old, it's historic. It was really cool. It was a great race to watch, but it was cold. I mean. It got down to like 37 degrees in that race, and they definitely said that the cold temperatures kept the fans away. But it was a great race, and I'm glad to see him racing there. It was pretty cool.
The Truck Series and Xfinity Series need to go back to Nashville Fairgrounds, hands down.
Without a doubt.
Cup Series should too, but that'll probably never happen. But at least
the only thing I noticed that the reason why NASCAR probably wouldn't bring their trucks or Xfinity cars there, I didn't see any safety barriers there.
That's
the barriers. Maybe that's the holdup why they don't go. But yeah, what a great track, man! I wish they would race more there.
Also, hats off to Matt TV for covering that race live, as they will with most of the ARCA schedule this season.
If you have a cable company that does not have MAV TV, call them. MAV TV is by far the best channel on the cable networks. I really enjoy watching MAV TV.
It's basically a modern day Speed Channel back, or I shouldn't even say Speed Channel, Speed Vision.
TNN Motorsports Channel.
Right,
It's more like
that
a
too.
TNN Motorsports Channel. What a great channel, man. You really guys. I was just out in my garage working on my race car, and I was watching demolition derbies from Irwindale Speedway. So yeah, it's a great channel.
I only have internet. I don't have cable or satellite or anything, so I'll have to figure something out.
I'll invite you over one day, Josh. You can sit in my garage and watch Math TV.
You're a sweetheart.
Can I come too?
Sure.
I got an invite. All right. So I'm going to ride this high right into our break. When we come back on the other side of open wheel racing was in action at full force. IndyCar in Phoenix. I got to witness that firsthand. Formula One in Bahrain. And there was probably a whole bunch more going on.
Did you just make it Jewish? Bahrain.
Yeah, perhaps. You're listening to the Very Dysfunctional RPM podcast. We'll be right back.
Hey everybody, this is Sam Ballard from the RPM Podcast. Planning an event and looking for a great time? Go no further than RC2U Racing for all your portable family entertainment. RC2U turns any occasion into a competition. Check them out online at rc2uracing.com.
Welcome back to the RPM Podcast. Sam Ballard Jr., Josh Matthews, Tim Riggleman, Scott Riggleman, and I'm Eric Brennan. Fresh off what was our best segment ever, because I said so. We actually got enough time now to talk about some open wheel stuff, and I'm going to kick things off with the IndyCar race in Phoenix, which I was fortunate enough to be able to attend while I was out in Arizona. And I'll tell you what, it was a blast. The track is currently under a little bit of renovation, so the front straightaway, the grandstands, at least the vast majority of them, have already been partially torn down. In fact, after the race ended, ISM Raceway posted a video of a wrecking ball taking out the media center as they continue their upgrading process where they're going to move the start-finish line and all that jazz. First half of the race was a dud. Nobody could pass. It seemed like it was going to be the same type of IndyCar race we've seen at ISM Raceway for the last couple of years, where even when the leader would catch lap traffic, he just couldn't seem to find a way around because either the cars weren't moving fast enough to make a run on the straightaway, or just once they lost that extra downforce to the front wing, there was no way they could go. However, the race picked up in intensity after both Sebastian Bourdais, the pole sitter, and Alexander Rossi were hit with pit road penalties. Rossi was the show. In fact, he came blistering up through the field, came up a couple of spots short. Turned out to be a dramatic finish on a late race restart, and I loved it. In fact, I would argue that race turned out to be the race of the weekend. IndyCar back again after a few weeks off. They're going to go on to Long Beach next week. But first, as far as the IndyCar race, Sam, I know that you were a big fan of the action that we saw. In fact, just before we went live tonight, or started recording tonight, I should say, you said that you wish that every event was just like that IndyCar Series race. Why?
I did. You can follow me on Twitter at Sam Ballard Jr. for all my tweets, man. But no, I thought it was a great race. I thought it was the best race overall for the weekend. I thought even Nick Rendo would agree there wasn't a lot of passing. However, this race didn't need a lot of passing. The pace was quick. You had guys like Rossi coming through the field, Sebastian Bourdais, Newgarden was quick. It just was a great race overall. The atmosphere, I could feel the atmosphere hundreds of miles away and here in Charlotte. I just thought it was a great race, and I just, was really glad I got to see it.
I think the drama was great. You had all this hype about Bourdais. Sam's telling me that Bourdais is going to clean up, like via messenger prior. He's like, yeah, Bourdais is going to wreck this, and it's going to be great, And then he can't even get his car started. It's like, where'd you leave the keys? Come on. So they got him rolled back and fired up. And
it's a Honda.
Well, that's why McLaren left. But, so, you had that. You had a couple minor wrecks. It was pretty much a lot of green flag racing. It really was. Hunter Ray had a pit gun problem, I remember. You had Leist. I forget his first name.
Mateus Leist.
Leist, that's what it was. They had a problem, and he was released with a loose left rear wheel, which came off, and the car spun. And then our very own Warren Alston was there to go and check on him, and Leist, did a quick 180 or got himself facing the right way, and they were going to push
Fun
him back.
fact: Warren was not there at the racetrack. I
Well,
don't
he
think
was
Warren
standing
would've
out in the
let
middle of
car
the
go.
pit lane, and he almost got run over by a car. So I could only assume. Anyway.
Oh, Josh.
But his wheel rolled down pit road. Now, here's the thing. That wheel went just, careening, down the end of pit road there. But it never really went up onto the track. It kind of rolled itself back behind some barriers. And no caution.
I wonder if the Hawkeye IndyCar officials caught that.
Well, I will say one of the things I did notice, IndyCar is usually a little bit more, no pun intended, cautious when it comes to throwing the yellow. And don't forget, they have a new chief starter or head official in Kyle Novak. This was his second race as their series race director. And I did happen to notice, like Josh said, when that rogue tire was heading off for the pit lane, it ended up coming to rest by some of the water barrels that were off to the inside wall. But there was a point where it looked like it was going to come up on the racing surface, and with an open cockpit race car, that's scary. Also, there was a time where Will Power hit the wall, didn't throw the yellow, and another car may have white-walled the fence, and the IndyCar did not throw the yellow for that as well. So I'm a little bit perplexed to see if maybe, Novak's taking an old-school approach at this, but usually we would see a caution flag in an IndyCar event. And I can't help but notice that in those three scenarios, and I can't name the third driver, and it's bothering me, but in those scenarios, we didn't. So maybe that's just a sign of a new man up top. I don't know.
I'm normally in support of that, and I'm not trying to just be negative. But it's seriously because they don't have the head protection that when that tire started heading, almost certainly onto the track, and yes, it did make an amazing turn and go back and hide itself, but I would have been, no, yellow, yellow, yellow. I mean, somebody's going to, run through that, or it's just, it looked like it could have been incredibly dangerous. Where the guys tapped the wall a little bit and were able to kind of keep rolling, that not so much. Because that was more of a, significant love tap. They damaged the cars, but they didn't, rip the suspension off or anything like that. You know what I mean?
Right. Sorry, Sam. I thought you were about to say something.
No, I just thought overall it was a good race, and I agree with Josh. I think they have to be a little more precautious. Novak being atop of it. I don't think people realize that being a race director isn't as easy as it seems. Not that I have anything to do about race directing or anything, but it's one of the cool things that
protests
to be
are
a fan,
awesome when you're a race director.
Right, and it's one of the cool things to actually sit back and watch as a fan and realize what they do in the upper series, how it breaks down to lower series, like with WK and stuff like that. That's all I wanted to say.
Now, with that IndyCar Series race coming to a close, it was a late race pass by Joseph Newgarden, who was the leader. The race had a bit of a road course feel to it. A lot of guys short pitting to try to get out of the dirty air, get some clean track, and that's how they'll make up time and leapfrog some of the competitors in front of them. Made for an interesting dynamic to watch in the latter stages of the race. Newgarden got the lead back the hard way. Came in to get tires on late in the race. Kyle Novak, I'll give him another tip of the cap, because the decision was made that with 20 laps to go, lap down cars were going to get moved out of their running position and towards the back. There were originally 3 cars between third place running Alexander Rossi and the fourth place running Newgarden on the fresh tires. IndyCar shuffled them off to the back. Newgarden made quick work to get up to second, and then eventually an outside move on Robert Wickens, who again, heartbreak for the Canadian rookie. After nearly almost winning at St. Petersburg, almost walked away with a win at Phoenix. This one, he got to salvage a second-place finish. I don't know about you guys, but I am really impressed with Robert Wickens. I
want to know where he came from. Is basically what it comes down to. I would say the other race was heartbreak. This wasn't entirely heartbreak. He kind of knew it was coming. He did a hell of a job to hold his line and let the pass happen, but make him work for it, but keep it safe. And still, you get a second place finish out of, how many races, for this guy. He's making a name for himself. He's getting talked about. He's getting noticed. With that will come sponsors and everything else. I think it's great for him. I was actually, I know pre-race, as Sam was, trash talking everybody else except for Bourdais. I said that I was going to be rooting for Newgarden, and then at the end I kind of found myself rooting for Wickens a bit, and Go ahead.
Was it him and Rossi who had that really good fight towards the end, and Rossi went over and shook his hand? You're like, oh crap, a fight's about to break out, and they're like, oh, this is IndyCar, they don't fight.
Yeah.
They shook hands.
They do, but I think the fact that Wickens got taken out in the fashion which he did back in St. Petersburg, it made him likable. You know, I mean, I think that's why a lot of people jumped on the Chase Elliott bandwagon. That's what happened to him at Martinsville last year.
Wasn't it Waltrip and Earnhardt that, like one of them was the bad guy, and then I think it was Earnhardt wrecked. No, nobody liked Waltrip, and then one day Earnhardt wrecked him, and everybody felt bad, and started becoming Waltrip fans. I'm going way back.
Or it might have been Rusty Wallace. I think it might have been that All-Star race where Rusty Wallace got in a Darrell, and then the fight broke out and all that stuff. And
Who likes Rusty Wallace?
Well, let's face it, this Wickens guy is better than my guy Marco Andretti. That's for sure. Marco didn't do nothing.
How about Ray Hall?
You know, Ray Hall, Letterman dominated the test with Takuma Sato and Graham, and they were really. I mean, they got top 10 finishes, I believe. But I thought they were going to be stronger than that. That was a lot for me. Also,
what did Will Power do? Where did Will Power end up?
He was leading at one point, and then he got with Alexander Rossi. Just one more thing. My entire ticket was worth the price of admission because of Alexander Rossi, single-handedly.
Not the girl you brought with you?
No. He made up a lap down on his own, got literally past, I think he was 14th or 16th at the time, and came from like 8th on the track in like running position, passed every car, including the race leader. Scott, to answer your question, when he went to go past Will Power, who was running second at the time, Power got up the track and got into the wall, and it put him out of the race.
Right. Yeah, he wrecked
early. He wasn't ready.
Yeah, I do remember that now.
But Rossi got the lap back and then continued on and charged all the way up to 6th when the yellow came out, restarted 3rd because he didn't pit, and he ended up with a podium finish. I mean, incredible.
Yeah, I'm going to say that it was definitely a pretty damn good IndyCar race. Not as exciting for me as like Texas, but still a lot of fun to watch. I didn't think the first half was that dull, Eric. I
missed the first half because I was watching the ARCA race. As soon as the ARCA race was over, I switched over to the IndyCar race, and I did see the last 20 laps or so. I'm like, oh my God, this race is awesome. They were really duking it out, you know?
Yeah.
And now you guys saying the first half of the race wasn't very good, but the end of the race was awesome, I thought.
Yeah, I will say, go ahead, Sam.
All I'm saying is Sebastian Bourdais is going to win the championship. That's all I'm saying. I'm just going to drop it here in the RPM podcast first. It's a safe bet. He was fast. Sebastian Bourdais had the fastest car. He had the fastest lap. I mean, it just bad luck.
Breaking news. Bourdais out for season.
When you're sitting in the grandstands at the IndyCar race, do you notice those little electronic signs on the side of the cars telling you what position the cars are in? Did you even pay attention to that?
Actually, you do. The scoring pylon was so far away from where we were sitting in the middle of 1 and 2, and I actually was able to point that out on the parade and pace laps. They're switched over to the American flag, which is
that's awesome.
Amazing. And then when they come into the pit lane. They switch over to green numerics where it'll show you the length of the pit stop. I was able to point out that one of them was like 8.6 or something like that. And then that's how I was able to keep track with Rossi. If I wasn't sure if he picked up a spot, when he would come by, I could see the numeric digital on that illuminated piece you're talking about. And I was able to see that he moved up from 7 to 6. And it was cool. The first time I ever got to see it that close. At Pocono, I can't make it out because they're going too fast. I guess because they were going so slow through 1 and 2. Slow, relative terms. But
I was going to say, when we just saw NASCAR there, it was, the Cup cars looked like they were crawling compared to the Indy cars.
Yeah, exactly. And but it's good. I left that race being thoroughly entertained. And
pick me.
Now,
what's up, Josh?
I'm sorry. Can we just all agree that the single file restarts suck?
Yeah.
Anywhere you go, single file restarts in any type of race.
No, except if it's a sportsman, they should be single file restarts the entire race. Sorry.
No, I don't like single file racing at all.
I will disagree. I will disagree. I think that that open wheel racing is something they tried it. They tried it and it didn't work. Here's the thing: the consequences for contact in an open wheel car are a lot greater than that of a stock car. So
I agree. I'm not arguing that. I just think that it leads to great, they're already single file. I mean, part of the most exciting part is when they're duking it out and fighting for position, and those cars have the downforce to do it.
Well, that's another thing I complain about IndyCar restarts. They're going so fast before the green flag even comes out. You know what
it's
I'm
not
saying?
even like a restart zone. It's like, oh, they're already up to speed.
They're hauling ass down the back straightaway. They're almost up to speed when the green flag comes back. I think they should be double fouls and start them slower, you know?
Yeah. Make them go through the gears.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm sorry. I don't have
a problem with it. They also are the only series that starts 3 wide at the Indianapolis 500, so I can't
That's
complain
awesome,
about
too. Josh loves 3 wide starts. We used to in Enduro racing. Used to scare the piss out of him.
That 3-way. Good time.
One other quick question, Eric, because you were attending the track, and that's awesome. You got to go to this race.
Yeah.
Like when you go to a NASCAR race, there's souvenir trailers and stuff. Do you see anything like that in any IndyCar race? Could you just said you're a big Rossi fan. Could you buy like a Rossi souvenir or shirt or hat or anything like that?
They had a really big tent, almost like the old school Fanatics tent. Well, I say old school, almost like the Fanatics tent that NASCAR once tried out a couple years ago. They had something like that. Some teams did have their own independent merchandise trailers, and then there were a couple of additional like hospitality things you can go check out. Phoenix had a setup, IndyCar had a setup. But they did have a rather large IndyCar merchandise trailer, which had product for just about every driver in the field. And it was a pretty good selection. A lot of stuff that you could find on the IMS website, and they had some stuff that you probably can only get at the track. So
you bought some souvenirs home, but it seems like it was pretty easy to buy stuff. So you was hoping
you know what it is?
A shirt or two, you know.
I thought about it. I didn't get anything for anybody.
You're a
and a lot of that was just. I didn't. Well, that's part of it. I went with a full suitcase, and the way the checked baggage rates are, for American, United Airlines.
Oh, now he's worried about money. I'll pay everybody's tab at the bar, but I'm not paying the baggage.
Listen, the bar tab that night was really high, okay? And I got to see a free fight. So everything worked out. But the race itself was amazing.
Did you
do down the grandstands? Was there like general admission, or could you sit anywhere you want? How did that work?
They had like tiers. Like they had so I asked for best available, so it was like 65. The next tier was like 55. Then it was 45 for
which is very affordable.
And Eric's date left in tears.
So, Tim, what were you gonna say, buddy?
I was gonna
I'm
ask
using that for what you learned today, so nobody steal that. All right. Oh my God.
I was
Go ahead, Tim.
gonna ask if you did my research and got something neat at the concession stand.
You know what? I didn't. I did have the beer. The beer was good. But aside from that, I really didn't eat. Actually, I didn't eat anything that whole day. And I realized leaving there as I was en route to another watering hole that this is probably not a good idea.
What that part of the country, like, how you go out south, it's bologna burgers, and here it's Philly cheesesteaks or whatever you want to call it. I wonder what.
I will tell you, Phoenix, that whole Phoenix area, Phoenix, Scottsdale, it seems to be like a very health conscious culture.
Oh, that's right. I never went to.
Yeah, like maybe because it's like 120 degrees there, like every day. It was 90 to 95 every day I was there, and when the summer hits, it really is like 120 degree weather,
and it's dry heat.
Yeah, everybody's thin. There was a couple of guys who were comparable to me in size that I would see. Like they were a little bit bigger.
That's how you know they were from your area of the country. They weren't.
Like I would go. I would go to some restaurants. Like it's like nothing but salad. Like what is this crap? Like I need like a steak or something. And
now did the town?
It's hard to find out.
Like the local feel. Did they like promote the races? Like welcome race fan signs and.
Nope, no, I didn't see anything like. And it's funny you mentioned that. I didn't see that for the NASCAR race either when I went there 2 years ago. So, and it's weird. It's not like what you see. Even when you go to Pocono, everybody has signs.
Every gas station has welcome race fans. I love that, man. That's old school stuff. I mean, when we were kids and went to the race championship, we love seeing those signs. And you get within 20, 30 miles of the track, you're getting close because all those welcome race fan signs are all over the place.
And
so is that
the guys at Pocono used to wear the deer hats with the canes that wave? Everybody remember that?
I was going to say, Eric, do you think that's a product of IndyCar? Is that IndyCar's doing or failure to do, or is that a track thing? I mean, I don't know where we stand with that.
I would think it's more of a location thing. I mean, for this was about my 5th trip to the Arizona area, and I just, at least from what I could see, it doesn't appear to be a town or a city that is engulfed in the passion of motorsports. They seem to be more proud of their Diamondbacks, their Phoenix Coyotes, and their Arizona Cardinals than they do of racing.
Are there short tracks in that area? Local short tracks?
I believe the nearest pavement short track is Tucson, which is about 2 hours away. So, yeah, I think there's a dirt track closer, which they actually had a Torque off-road event this past week. It was either IndyCar or that, and I elected to go the IndyCar route. And the dirt track is a little bit closer, but the nearest pavement track is Tucson, about 2 hours away. So, yeah.
What about parking? Was parking free?
Yes, they did have free parking, as I believe they did for the Cup race a couple years back. So that's a unique amenity they offer.
I would say, looking at the crowds for both the NASCAR and the IndyCar races, the crowds actually seemed about similar in size.
Yeah,
NASCAR having a little bit of an edge, maybe, but they were on the low end, and IndyCar looked on the better end of what they tend to.
I was watching the post-race report with Marshall Pruitt and Robin Miller on Racer.com or Racer Magazine, and they did harp on the fact that the crowd wasn't great, the race wasn't great, and there's actually some concern as to whether or not Phoenix will be back next year on the IndyCar schedule.
After that race, it better be.
Well,
I hope they are. I hate seeing IndyCar lose oval track races. I love IndyCars on oval tracks.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope they don't lose another oval. And if they do lose it, I hope they move it to another oval track and not a road course.
Right. And I agree with you. And to me, the way that you could judge success on your crowd is if a moment happens and you could hear the fans over the cars. And when Newgarden took the lead, you could hear the crowd over the roar of the engines. And it was, and I wasn't, there wasn't people packed in. Like, we almost had the row all to ourselves. And like, it was wild. It was wild how the crowd got so engaged, because IndyCar usually brings a little bit of a pinky up type of culture to it. And everybody was cheering and hollering, and it was a really, really good time. So looking forward to it. Totally different than what you would find in Bahrain, though. So
speaking of Bahrain,
that's an inside joke of my mother. So
Hi, Stephanie.
At least she's probably sleeping now. So Formula One in Bahrain. I only saw highlights.
I'm tagging her when I post this.
You can, and she'll love it. That sounded so bad. I didn't get to catch the race at all for Formula One. So one of you guys take the wheel if you can.
Well, I'm going to take the wheel about as well as Red Bull did.
Oh boy, we're not gonna last long. Which is an Eric Brennan personal problem.
Yes, exactly. I was leading there. Thank you. So lap 2 seemed to be it for wings. Ricardo had a power unit issue, if that makes it vague enough for everybody. Basically, the engine took a crap. Or the computer for the engine, whatever it was. Verstappen, who there was a lot of promise for him, I thought, this race, and lap 2 got a puncture, and
he just Max Verstappen himself. He drove way hard into him and Hamilton. Gosh, I can't
to
speak.
be fair,
him and Hamilton were racing side by side. Go ahead.
I was going to say, he raced Hamilton really hard, and he was pushing the edge of, what he could do. But Hamilton was not going to give him room. And not just, I'm Lewis Hamilton, I'm a little bit faster or whatever. He could have gone a hair wider. He had plenty more room to go out and make that turn, and he tried to hold Verstappen down, and Verstappen said, no, I'm not going to buy that. And unfortunately, F1 cars need fenders. And because Verstappen's left rear just barely, seriously, like, I've had cat scratches worse than that. It got into his
right.
We touched the front wing of Hamilton's car, and that was enough to puncture it, cut it down. And he was trying to ride it around. I was hoping he would kind of limp it back to the pits, and he
tried.
Yeah, he definitely did try, but at that point, it's F1, so after the first lap, unless somebody blows up, it's a little tough. It really wasn't a bad race. I want to say Haas did not have their pit issues like the last race, so good for them.
But the performance wasn't there. like it was last.
It wasn't,
the
but
first
Magnussen did do fairly well. I think he finished fifth. So that was a great display by Magnussen to hold up there. It still boggles my mind sometimes when you see like a faster car, let's say a Mercedes or something like that, when he has to go and pass the Haas car, which is doing really, really well, like better than anyone could expect or believe, and then it just goes by him like it's nothing. I mean, it's amazing the difference between the teams, even when you're doing really well.
Right.
But Raikkonen, I think he told his crew guys to, break a leg before the race, all in encouragement, and one guy took it a little too literally.
I don't think the guy had a choice. I think Kimi was like, "Hey, man, congrats."
Yeah. They had a terrifying issue where I don't know if it was a pit gun, I don't know if it was just the nut, or I have no idea, but you saw they could not get the left rear off of Raikkonen's car.
Right. And then they released the car when they shouldn't have. Or at least Kimi decided to say, "Hey, I'm going."
They changed 3 tires out of the 4, and they were still trying to wave it off, but the guy that I guess I would call him the tire changer, the tire carrier, was
right.
He had stepped back, unfortunately, in the path of the left rear wheel.
And truthfully, there's videos all over the internet. I don't understand why people are so fixated on this crap, but I mean, it's a pretty graphic video. So if you're younger or your kids are in the, around, I don't recommend them watching. It's pretty scary to see. But yeah,
you can see the guy's leg fold in a way that it's not meant to fold, basically. And I mean, not life threatening by any means, but certainly painful. And now here's my question: fine, you get an unsafe release penalty, but they could have rolled the car back and then worked on it and changed it. But Raikkonen climbs out of the car. And look, I like Raikkonen, but he did not go over to check on the guy.
Right. I don't know if I misread the conversation Nick Rendo and I had.
Okay.
Nick Rendo says you're not allowed to push the car back. Your crew's not allowed to go and get the car and push it back in the pits. That's illegal. So they would have forfeited the race because of that.
Okay, so they were pretty much done unless they accepted the penalty for an unsafe release, drove a lap.
Drove all the way around and then came back in, scooped the guy off the pits, and then changed the tire.
Use the front wing to scoop him up.
Right.
Like a plow or a backhoe or something.
But, I mean, overall, it was, I don't think it was a great F1 race. However, I don't think it was bad. I mean, it was a typical Tom and Jerry cat fight towards the front with Bottas and Sebastian Vettel, but besides that, I mean, it really wasn't anything special. But I think the leg was the biggest thing of the race.
That may have been the biggest moment. But I mean, Red Bull being out, that added drama to the beginning, and then
Red Bull is always out, always.
I never really thought so because I mean, Ricardo
we
had a
bought
couple.
That one car with the amount of Red Bull we drink on the
show. Possibly.
I was drinking a Red Bull in the shower earlier.
I don't want to talk about you in the shower right now.
It happened.
Okay. Now, here's something I did want to ask. And this is, I don't know the rules. I don't know the rules well enough to answer this, and because I'm trying to watch 3 gajillion races every weekend. That would be an unsafe release, what we talked about with Raikkonen, and that was going to be a penalty. Can they penalize Vettel with it because it was a team? Because if you think about it, the driver didn't release himself. I mean, he was told to go, so he went.
Right.
So can you penalize another car on the team because it was a team mistake?
I would say it should be that way because it's a team effort. We all win together. We all fail together. If Nick Renda was on the show because it was the Ferrari car, he'd probably say, "No way, that's never going to happen. That's irrelevant. Let's move on."
Probably. I'm just curious about that.
But pretty much, if you didn't watch the F1 race, you're not really missing anything.
No, I didn't think it was that bad. It was better than Baku.
I like Baku.
I think that there was more passing. There was more action. I mean, there was some tension whether or not Vettel was going to be able to hold him off at the end, or hold off Bottas. Bottas, apparently, a lot of people were bitching that Bottas did not take full advantage of his position to make a pass. Like they said he got up there and then he just wasted his opportunity.
He was points racing. He knew that Kimi had a bad day, and Lewis was not far behind him. He's just playing it smart. I applaud Bottas for doing what he did.
But I mean, the tire differential. I mean, you don't think that Bottas had a shot?
I don't think people realize with F1, it's catching the car in front of you is not the issue. It's passing them. It's that air bubble around them that really messes the whole driver up.
Okay.
Well,
there's that, but I wasn't sure because I know Ferrari has the KERS system. So do you think that he was using while Bottas was using the DRS, Vettel's using the his KERS button to get an extra 150 horsepower, to combat that, which I that has to play into it.
Right.
Because I would think that if Bottas had a significant run, he would have, made it and taken any opportunity to pass.
Right.
Within reason, not pulling a Verstappen kind of crazy move, but making an effort to pass him. I mean, why not?
Right. I think the issue is the cars are so equal that they can't do anything. I mean, kind of like what Scott was saying, when you limit these cars so much in the beginning of the show, you just kind of limit the racing they can do. Why not slow the F1 cars down a little bit and tell them, have at it, boys, and then it'll be a slugfest for just so you can make the fastest lap.
I think it'd be a pyramid of wrecked race cars, which actually a lot of the drivers were complaining. You heard the radio transmission. Come on, where's the blue flag? Where's the blue flag? Why is he not moving over? Work your way around lap traffic, man.
Right.
Scott knows how to work his way around lap traffic. Why can't these guys? It's like a obstacle course to an extent. I love it. I think it makes for more action, and if you're not getting enough passes, let the lap traffic play a role. I mean, yeah, I think the lap traffic should respect that the leader's there, but at the same time, why are these guys just whining and complaining that they're not getting the blue flags?
Because they're F1 drivers and they can.
I guess. Now I believe it was Grosjean had some body work that seemed to just disintegrate. I don't think he made any contact. I think just
it was like some Houdini crap. It was like, now you see me, now you don't.
It just went away. And I'm trying to see if Eric is going to laugh at this about our flap discussion from a year or two ago.
My God. That was like from episode 1.
I was going to say more like 3, but the flaps flap. Well, he had some flapping body work, and a couple pieces kind of went flapping off.
Hey man, if you can't get it up, call Haas.
Well, Eric,
I'll be right back.
Eric has to go flap it.
What? Oh my goodness! Let's continue on, shall we?
All right, so
anyway,
Pierre Gasly, fourth. Where did that come from? With a Honda. Now, is that a big FU to McLaren now?
Heck yeah, it is. Heck yeah, and I'm glad.
Or did they get lucky, Sam?
No, this is not luck.
Okay.
Well, okay. Fernando Alonso is running really well this year, though. It's funny, though, because, pretty much the B squad's all pretty quick. It's just the A squad got even quicker. You have a lot of these midfield teams fighting the crap out of each other for fourth. So I think he's the real winner of the race.
That still makes for a good show and televised. I also want to say, before I go any further, thank you to ESPN for not inserting commercials everywhere.
Yeah, it was a good race, broadcast-wise and everything. I mean, the racing product alone wasn't anything to brag about, but the broadcast was pretty good.
The last race, I complained because all ESPN did, and it's the same thing. They just relay the Sky Sports feed.
Right.
So, but the thing is, Sky Sports doesn't stop talking. They don't take commercial breaks. ESPN was like doing their side-by-side or wiping out the screen entirely and putting commercials on, and then you were coming back not knowing what just happened. Here, they didn't bother with commercials. I can't believe it. ESPN put no commercials on the broadcast because they realized it. Now, are they really going to lose that much money? Or,
no,
who watches F1? Yeah.
Right. Who watches F1? Anyway, so at the end of the race, after the race thing, the cool thing F1 does is they do the little victory winner circle before they do the podiums in the back room.
Yeah.
And you blatantly heard on the broadcasting Lewis Hamilton calling Max Verstappen a D-head. And they apologized for it.
Here, guys.
And then one of the reporters after podiums asked Hamilton, why did you call Max Verstappen a D-head? And Vettel stepped in, bravo to Vettel, and said, I think that's a SHIT question you got right there, pal. Sit the freak down. Shut up. That's my friend. And I think you're being a real jerk.
I'm kind of surprised at that. I mean, they're rivals and they can talk after the fact. What's that, Eric?
I said Sam's censorship skills are on point.
Oh, they are.
I got to make up for the Sonny D comment I made earlier today.
No, that was moving the race so far today.
That's gonna go on our thumbnail, right, Sam? A bottle of Sonny D.
Big old bottle of Sonny D. Anyway, so that
today is National Siblings Day, and my brother did not post a picture of me on his Facebook. I just wanted to point that out real quick.
Oh, you're going down, Tiff. You're going down.
That's because That's because I haven't gotten my check yet. That's why.
Hey, you went out and bought this big fancy box truck to haul your go-karts with. I think you should be sending me a check.
Yeah. I actually, to believe it or not, I was actually thinking about it. I don't have any pictures of us when we were little. You know, they didn't have cell phones when we were little, so there's not tons of pictures of us around.
Yeah, you had to send nudes via like snail mail, you know, like
you go right to that.
That's what Polaroid cameras were for.
Remember, yeah, but even they take too long.
The disc cameras. Remember the disc cameras?
Yeah, Eric's a two-pump. Never mind.
Yeah. Spit out and shake it. Spit and shake.
I'm a marathon man. ESPN is going to be presenting their Formula One coverage commercial-free for the remainder of the 2018 season. This from a release that came down late this afternoon for qualifying and race broadcasts. So that's good news on television front after they really stepped up their coverage, like you guys said. And a rumor that has just come down the wire, and I mean literally just come down the wire. It's a long-term rumor, but it seems to have some legs to it. Apparently, Haas is trying to lure Fernando Alonso to their team for next season because there appears to be some speculation that Romain Grosjean is going to fill the void that Kimi Räikkönen will leave at Ferrari. If Alonso does in fact come over to Haas, the general consensus is that this would be the perfect pair because being that Haas is here in the States, Alonso could then make one more crack at the Indy 500 and also compete in other U.S. events like the Daytona 24 Hours and so on.
NASCAR.
I'm excited because this means Nick Rendo will have to be a Grosjean fan.
Yes, that's actually a really good point, and I can't wait to lay into him on that one. Chinese Grand Prix this weekend, telecast be on ESPN2 around 2 a.m. Sunday, and again that will be all commercial free. So
I'm excited for that though.
The whole race, no commercials.
Correct.
Yeah, that's how they aired Bahrain, and apparently they got so much flack for how poor the coverage was in Australia. They did a 180 and they just went full bore. And
did somebody pay that? Like, is it whatever the name of the race is, presented by Coca-Cola or presented by?
I'm not sure if the FIA would even allow that. I didn't see anything about that. It's whatever sponsors make it onto the TV screen from whatever, and other than maybe a really small thing up in the corner. No.
On the ESPN front, there is a presenting sponsor, and that is in fact Mother's Polish.
Oh, there you go.
In fact, they are promoting the fact that they are going to continue to try to work and provide that
Mother's
commercial
Polish.
Mother's
not
Polish.
For nothing. Sam Ballard uses Mother's on his 1973 Corvette. You should too. That's all I'm saying. It smells like lollipops. You just want to eat it.
And what network is that on?
ESPN.
ESPN and ESPN2, the family of ESPN networks.
Just download the ESPN app. It's easier. I'm a damn millennial something. Anyway, so that'll about wrap up our open wheel segment. Finally, we had some good stuff to talk about now that everybody's getting underway. Up next, we're going to have some interesting local stuff. A lot of modified stuff, so I'm going to be less than useless. And, anything else, Eric?
I'm good. I'm ready to talk some short track racing. And since we got Tim Riggleman in the house, Tim, the IceBreaker at Thompson is one of my favorite events on the calendar. Obviously, I was out of state, so I didn't get to go there. I've been going there for the last 2 years.
Are we going to take a break first?
So, do you want to?
I thought we were going to.
That was the idea. We talked about that.
This is what happens when your host doesn't listen to his producer.
Yep.
So, According to the man in the studio, we're going to take a break. When we come back, I'm actually going to talk to Tim Riggleman about how the icebreaker was at Thompson. Wall Stadium opens up this weekend. Evergreen Raceway opens up this weekend. There's so much going on. And actually, a really cool gesture by one of our local racers and track champions. All that and more. And the final segment of the RPM podcast coming at you right after this break.
Shake it 3 times.
Hi, this is Sam from the RPM Podcast. Got any questions? Message us on Facebook at Racing Podcast NJ. While you're at it, click the like button. Well, only if you actually like it. Don't be that guy.
I am that guy, and you're listening to the RPM Podcast with Sam Ballard Jr., Josh Matthews, Tim Riggleman, Scott Riggleman, and myself, Enrique Brennan. Ton of stuff to talk about. What? That was my name in Spanish class.
Enrique?
Yeah, because it's
Really?
Eric, you know? Yeah.
Oh, it's like me having
Enrique from Bahrain. Got a bunch of stuff to talk about on the local side of things. First thing I want to do, since we got Tim Riggleman with us, I want to go back and talk about one of my favorite races, usually, of the year, and that is the IceBreaker at Thompson. I have fallen deeply in love with Thompson. That's the racetrack, folks, not somebody named Thompson. And I couldn't be there this year. First year in the last 3 that I had to miss it because I was out of state. But oh my goodness, the modified race, which was streamed live on fanschoice.tv, and I didn't have a chance to see it there either. It looked like a thrill. Tim, you were spotting for Eric Goodell, and you also did more than one job in terms of spotting on the weekend. Just want to throw it right over to you and just hear how your weekend went, your thoughts on it all, and how did everything unfold for you guys?
Well, it started out, it was cold. So I think a lot of people stayed away at first, but the place was packed, like it always is.
Was it fans or competitors? Do you think a few people?
No, the competitors were there.
Okay, I mean, I can imagine, like, we've had instances in the past where, like, it looks like it's going to rain.
They
so
don't
people,
come,
they don't bother. But, I mean, this is a pretty big
event.
event.
We had a very good field. I think how many cars did we have? Does anybody know?
I think it was over 30.
That's sad.
36.
Yeah, I think it was like 36 or 37. 36. Scott's got the number on the nose, 36.
Good job.
Thank you.
Yeah, as far as the race, we practiced well, and then missed it a little bit on the time trials, and we had to start a little further back than we normally do. And he ran well. He made up all the positions, and we were running right where we wanted to. And as many people know, that after the last pit stop, there were some cars in the front that were a little slower than the guys in the back with tires, and something happened up front, and the guys in the middle checked up, and the guys in the back didn't, and we were in that wreck when Jimmy flipped. Eric actually hit very hard. Thompson's a fast place, and he can hit pretty hard there, and he hit hard, and the car was pretty used up, I'll say, and
what kind of wall is it? Is it just a straight up
cement.
concrete?
They got a huge concrete wall. And I was just thinking when Tim was saying that Eric hit hard, I can't believe they haven't gone to something there. Like, even if they went to, like, the old style styrofoam blocks.
It's
like
always right in that spot, too. Like, just put it in the
that's where
corner.
they hit. Put some foam blocks up
It's
there.
it's about time. I mean, they make money. They just that whole facility is just, like Eric said, it's just so beautiful now. Like, with all the garages and all the updates that they've done. That I don't pay the bills there, and I don't know the logistics there, but I think it's time.
Those foam blocks are about $85 a piece. I'm sure they can afford a few of them and throw them up there in the corners. Give the guys some cushion, because that's a solid concrete wall. Backed up with dirt.
I think Evergreen still uses some foam blocks up in their at least their turn one.
They work. They work good. And throw some up there. Like Tim says, they all seem to hit in that one spot. Put some blocks there.
Yeah. Well, I will say the one problem might be, and this is just the bureaucratic politics nightmare that you get yourself into. If you put foam blocks in one spot, because for a good reason, you're trying to do something proactive and be safe. If somebody hits and gets hurt anywhere else, they're going to come after you and say, well, you put them here. Why didn't you put them there?
Yeah,
right.
And
I understand what
you got to do the whole thing or nothing. Is pretty much
unfortunately. And that's just, unfortunately, the politics of insurance companies. Yay!
Yeah,
I tell you what, though, talking about Thompson, though, Thompson is a perfect racetrack for asphalt modifieds. I mean, it has the room. It's not too big where they get spread out, but it's big enough where they can show that the horsepower they have and the banking's just right. I mean, Jimmy was putting on a show coming up through. I think he started like 12th at the one restart, and he made it all the way up to the lead. And he was doing some great passing on the bottom of the track, where Thompson is usually the passing is on the top.
I was going to say that. Well, yeah, that's usually up top. And Jimmy and Eric actually found that he could run down there with success. Usually that's like the one place you don't want to start. You know, on the bottom, you want to be up top. And it was, I don't know why, maybe because of the cold weather or the green racetrack. I'm not a crew chief. I don't know why but you could run down there. I'm agreeing 100% with what you said. And it doesn't take Jimmy long to figure something out. And he figured it out, and he came right to the front. He ran well. It would have been interesting if the faster cars could have got back up there to the front.
Now, what caused you mentioned Jimmy flipped. What caused him to be in that position, and then two, the incident?
Well, he pitted when we pitted, and he was actually behind us when the wreck happened. Like I said earlier, the slower cars in the back never stopped. They just pushed everybody in.
Okay.
And Jimmy actually passed Eric on the wall when he came down and flipped real gently. It wasn't that bad of a flip, but yeah, he just got somebody spotter didn't tell the guy to check up or whatever, and that was it.
That's kind of like what happened with Suarez on Sunday in the NASCAR race. When Bowman went around, it looked like Suarez just wasn't. I don't know, maybe he was falling asleep or something, and just piled right on in. So all right, so that's the thing. I think spotters are incredibly important, and a lot of really good ones are out there. But then you get some of the more, let's say, amateur ones, or maybe they don't know and they don't say the right thing.
You got to start somewhere, but it's always the thing.
Tim, did our friend that was on our show?
Yes, he spotted for Jimmy.
Ago, was he spotting for Jimmy? Now?
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
Yes. Jimmy said he did.
What's his name, Eric?
Anthony Bozzella, who is actually he's been going through his own personal fight with cancer. So I'm happy that he's doing. He was really amped up to start getting back to the racetrack. So I'm happy to see that Jimmy gave him that opportunity because he's a really, really good kid.
He is a good kid. I actually met him. He's for lack of a better term, he's a protege of Tony Hirschman.
Yep.
Spotter. And
that's father.
Yes. No. But,
yes. Tony approached me on text message, said, "Can you take care of this kid? He's going to start spotting at Wall." And I think he spots for Shannon Manjo at Wall, and a late model guy. I think maybe a late model guy from Riverhead.
Brian Doyle?
I think from Riverhead.
Brian Doyle.
And I got to know him. He's a polite kid, and Jimmy asked. I think he got hooked up through Jimmy with Shannon. I think Shannon suggested that he use him, and he sat where we sat. It can get a little hectic up in the spotter stand, and he was a little nervous about that. So Jimmy said, "Can he sit with you?" And he did. He did a good. And Jimmy said he did an excellent job. And usually Jimmy's very candid with what he says about the spotters, so he would have told me if it wasn't true. So,
especially considering how Jimmy's day ended, to know that he felt comfortable with who was on the radio with him. I mean, it must say a lot about the job he was able to put through. I know Anthony takes spotting extremely seriously, and he's going to go places. So I'm happy that Jimmy gave him that chance. As the race continued on, it was Justin Bonsignor, the 2018 indoor champion, who ended up grabbing the win after qualifying third. However, as Tim alluded to earlier, Bonsignor only ended up leading 5 laps on the day. After being able to avoid some of the late race carnage. Craig Lutz got second, Rowan Pennick third. Ryan Preece, after the finish that he had in the Xfinity race on Saturday, ended up in fourth. And Matt Swanson was your top 5. As far as some of the local drivers that we could talk about, Andrew Krause at a track which has been really good to him over the years, struggled in qualifying, ended up finishing in 14th, completed all the laps though. New Jersey driver Calvin Carroll was 16th. Blake Barney had a problem with the clutch early on, did not finish the race. However, the team is full steam ahead for the next tour type modified race that is on the calendar, which I believe is at Stafford in a couple of weeks' time.
Correct, yes.
So now,
So
Timmy, you
overall, well, I'm sorry, Eric. Would you call it other than that incident? I mean, nasty incident, Jimmy going over and all that. You said it wasn't that hard. You've spoken to him since, and he's doing all right. Would you call it otherwise have been a good race?
I thought it was a good race. It was a lot of passing.
That was awesome.
Yeah,
it was awesome.
the modified,
I watched it on
like Scott
Facebook
said, the
TV. It was
modified,
awesome.
the modified race at Thompson's always good. The 7NY, Eric didn't mention it. He ran out of gas on the green white checker restart, leading the race.
Oh wow!
And
I didn't realize that. That was John McKennedy trying to go back to back.
And Tommy Baldwin took credit for it. Yeah, he said it.
Yeah, Tommy said it was his fault. He didn't put enough fuel in the car.
Now, I mean, were they aware that he was going to be on the low side, and were they I mean, I know you're concentrating on your thing, but I mean, maybe catch word that they knew that they were a bit.
I could tell there was something wrong because it must have sputtered like earlier because his spotter was going. You could see him going like, "Oh man!" I'm like, "Oh, there's something wrong with the 7," and I guess he got it fired back up, and then they went into the corner and it just died.
Okay, so yeah, he maybe just got enough in the carburetor to.
They did make it down pit road. They fueled it up, and he did go back out. So
okay, good. It's still a I remember there was Scott. I'm going to talk to you about factory stocks here. It was Turkey Derby. I'm trying to remember what year, but we ran so many caution laps that night that I actually ran out of fuel in the pits after the race. Like I didn't even. I was on my way to the trailer and it crapped out. I couldn't believe. Now I have only like an 8-gallon cell, but yeah, that was a remarkable testament to how many laps we ran that night. I mean, even if it was under caution. And then since then, I've actually started on occasion in a longer race. Say we're going to have a 75 lapper or something like that. I've actually put it up into drive under caution sometimes just to use a little bit less fuel. I don't know if you've ever. I'm assuming you have a larger fuel cell. I'm not asking for secrets,
I got a 16 gallon.
So you're usually set then.
Yeah, I'm good.
All right, so
while we're talking about cars running out of fuel, I don't know. I my mind.
What did I start?
Quick Scott Riggleman story. No, not Scott Riggleman story at all. Just something Carl Edwards said on an interview that I heard. I guess he was leading a cup race at one time, and he ran out of gas on the last lap. And I guess he had a thing where he always called his grandmother after a race weekend or whatever. So he called his grandmother to check in on like Monday after he ran out of fuel. I don't know if you guys ever heard this story, but his grandmother yelled at him. She's like, "Carl, I don't understand why you ran out of fuel in that race. Don't you guys get that fuel for free at the cup races?" She's like, "Why are you running out of gas if the fuel is for free?" I thought that was pretty cool because, Sunoco sponsors the Cup Series and they give them the fuel for free. So the grandmother knew that the fuel was free for them to race. Why are they running out? I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah, I like that story. I had not heard that at all before. Where did you pick up on that?
I don't want to tell you.
Okay. Scott knows somebody who knows somebody. Yeah.
No. It might have been like that racers with dinner with racers.
Okay.
I was trying to go a whole show without mentioning it.
Thank you for
That's
trying,
great.
Scott. I do appreciate it. But we have to
That
talk
is
more about
great.
the Steve and Kyle podcast because we're going to be trading places with them, hopefully in the near future, whenever Eric can get his schedule together. So.
We'll try. Now, the best story to come out of the modified race actually came from the driver who ended up on his lid. And this is something which also has a direct tie to our buddy Tim Riggleman, who's here with us. The whole breakdown of the story is on speed51.com as they kind of put a really nice article together. But after the big crash that Jimmy Blewett had, after finding much success in the tour type modified race this past Sunday, after a conversation with our very own Tim, they elected to auction off the roof of that race car and donate it to a good cause. And the good cause they elected to pick is for a really well-renowned fan known as Rapid Rick. And once, before we went on air and I started talking to Timmy about this, it began to click who Rapid Rick was. And he's
It's
a
not
really
Rick
devout race
Ratchet,
fan.
right?
No.
I know Rick Ratchet.
It's Rick Reducha, and I apologize for saying his last name wrong because that I've known of the name Rapid Rick, but it's Rick Perduccia, and Rick is actually somebody who, he's been stricken with some bad luck in terms of this disease that he was diagnosed with. It's osteogenesis imperfecta, which, according to the article, is also known as brittle bone disease. So it has Rick bound to a wheelchair, but it doesn't stop him from traveling to many of the races that are on his calendar. However, he's had some trouble where he had a van that he was utilizing to get to and from the track that he needed to replace. So a GoFundMe account was set up, and Jimmy elected to take that roof and auction it off with the highest bidder being able to walk away with it, and all the money being donated to that GoFundMe to help Rapid Rick get a new vehicle that can get him to the races. The winning bid was another driver who had Wall Stadium Speedway ties, and that was championship winning crew chief Ray Evernham, and he ended up claiming that roof for $1,500, and a lot of publicity went to Rapid Rick's GoFundMe page, and I believe that us at the RPM podcast, we're going to share that to our listeners as well. If you want to read more up on the story and donate,
it's done. It's on there already.
See, Sam, our social media guy's on it.
This is why we need
Tim.
Eric, I wanted to say, when you first said that he was stricken with some bad luck, I thought you were going to say that he got stuck with Kevin Harvick's pit crew.
No, not that kind of bad luck. Now, Tim, something that I try to parlay when I talk to somebody who is not new, who is not in tune with the world of racing, I use stories like this because to me, this is what makes the world of motorsports so incredible and so great. How did this all come about? Is it true that it was you and Jimmy were just shooting the breeze and this came to pass?
I was over at Jimmy's shop. The whole story is this. We were supposed to have go-karts ready before we left to go to Thompson because practice was Sunday while we were at Thompson. And Jimmy got a little busy. We didn't get the go-karts ready. So he's like, all right, well, we're going to have to miss practice and we'll work on go-karts Monday. So as Jimmy's sliding down the wall, I'm watching him from the spotter side of the wall, and he flips over. I go, thinking to myself, well, I guess we're not working on go-karts tomorrow. So I called him up. I'm like, you still want me to come over? We're going to work on go-karts. He's like, yeah, we'll come over. We didn't work on go-karts. But he got taking the car all apart, and he's like, do you want, Jimmy's really good with my daughters. He's like, do you think your kids would want the roof? And I'm like, there are race car parts on my wall in my garage, but I'm like, Jimmy, I don't need any more crap. I got so much crap, I don't need any more. Thank you. Why don't we do something on Facebook and your social media and stuff and donate? We got talking about, not to put anybody down, but he's like, you want to put it on like a bigger one? Who would we donate the money to? Like Martin Truex? I'm like, well, no, I mean, like I said, they can donate a glove and get $5,000 for it. Like their name sells their product, and they're good causes. Don't get me wrong, but let's help somebody local that we know. And we got talking about this or that, and I'm like, why don't we do Rapid Rick? And like the guy's like, he's been at every modified race I've been to. He's there, and he's been there since we were younger. And he's like, yeah, that'll work out good, and that's the way it all came together. And then. He put it on his Facebook and his Instagram, and the shares on Facebook were like 100 and something, 124 or something, if I remember right.
Yeah.
It went like wildfire. And
I saw Mike Joy retweeted it on his social media account,
Wow.
Speed 51.
Well, that's
the story on it.
They all know this guy because he went to every single race in the Northeast, Mike Joy used to work at Stafford and Thompson and all that, so. It worked out. And
for the casual race fan, we really got to raise awareness to a really good cause, and hopefully Rick gets back on the road and back to the track relatively soon because he seems to be a favorite amongst drivers and fans alike. And it's just putting a silver lining on what was a tough ending to a solid weekend for Jimmy and his team. And now the attention turns to not only Wall Stadium this Saturday, but also, as you said, the Sunday Series, which is scheduled to kick off next week as well.
Speaking of our friend Jimmy Blewett, he just posted a picture of a car. I don't know if he's running it or he's running a 3X or an X3.
Now, I know who runs that. I don't know if it's a secret or not, though.
Okay, never mind then.
Breaking news on the RPM podcast.
If Jimmy didn't put who was racing it, I will tell the fans it's definitely not Jimmy Blewett, at least not this weekend.
Well, he didn't put anything on there, so I don't want to get you fired, Tim. All I want to say is the car looks.
I'm not getting
the car
fired.
looks fantastic.
I try to get fired. It doesn't happen.
Yeah, you won't get fired. You'll get even.
That's a pretty car, though, isn't it?
Oh, it's
it's
it
beautiful.
looks like Henry O'Neill did an awesome job on that car. To me, it looks like the older fans. It looks like a throwback for Tony Ferranti, the X3.
Oh, Tim, you mentioned that off air, you mentioned that you did something, you were spotted for something with fenders?
Yeah, I was going to get to that, but Eric like cut me off. So
Eric, go away.
Sorry, Timmy. Sorry.
yeah,
He's about to talk about real race cars
for the fans and stuff that don't know, like I'll text Josh like an article or something I think is interesting. It's always about modifieds because I'm a modified guy. He always texts me back, "No fenders, don't care," stuff like that. So, we didn't have to be at Thompson until 12 o'clock as far as the modified tour goes. So here I am late in the. Usually we got to be up at the racetrack at like 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock. Oof. So here I am. I finally got where I didn't have to rush out of the hotel. And I'm all proud of myself because I still made it there by 11 o'clock. As I'm walking through the gate, Eric Goodale's father, Edgar, who actually owns the team, and I've told you guys before, Scott's asked me before, I don't go to the races looking to spot for anybody else. He goes, "Can you do me a favor? Can you spot for this guy?" And I'm like, "Oh, this guy from Riverhead for the past late model racing." Apparently there was a couple guys from Riverhead there, but their motors are a little down in horsepower for the pass rules.
Okay.
So I'm like, oh man, I got a spot for this guy. He's got no motor, I'm like, because I can't tell. Edgar Goodale takes such good care of me. I just can't tell the guy no, And he's like, "Could you be a favorite spot for this guy?" I'm like, "Well, who is it?" And this is all via text as I'm walking through the gate. I don't even know who's. He sends me a picture of the car. He goes, "You got to get to the spotter stand right now. There'll be a radio there waiting for you."
Oh boy!
And anybody knows me, I'm not fast enough to get.
All he wanted to do was get to the Dunkin' Donuts trailer.
I never made it to the Dunkin' Donuts truck. Not all weekend.
Oh, that's a bad weekend for you, man.
Well, yeah, we'll get to that. But I'm like Edgar, you know me better. I can't get to the spotter stand right now. Like I'll get there when I get there. I did make it anyway. I'm getting ahead of myself. And I'm like, who is this guy? He's like Rusty Turbush. Now, Rusty Turbush, Scott was like, when he was racing Flemington in the street stocks with fenders, Rusty Turbush was my favorite driver. Like, I'm like, oh yeah, I'll spot for Rusty Turbush. But the story was that Rusty's kid, I think his first name was Brandon. Brendan?
Yeah.
I think Brandon Turbish is the name that I.
Yeah.
Yep.
How dare you correct Scott?
Dude, this is what I'm talking about.
All right.
I don't even know the kid's name, And so I'm like, yeah, I'll spot for Rusty. He goes, so I get up to the spotter stand and I'm like, hello, and radio, of course.
So you don't even get to meet the person.
No.
Your first it's like a blind date over radio.
Yes, exactly. It's not the first time this happened to me. And it's like any other time you guys ask me why I have my own radios. I get up there, I'm like, check 1, 2, no answer. Hello, can you hear me? No answer. I'm like, all right. Now I hustled to get up here for no reason. Now the guy can't even hear me.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden he's like, hello, is anybody else out there? So I feel like I'm talking to some guy on the moon. He's like, hello. And I'm like, yeah, this is Timmy, Eric Goodale spotter. He's like, okay, thank you. I go, your Rusty Turbush is in the car, right? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, all right, Rusty, I know who you are. I used to watch you at Flemington in the Fisherman's Rest 06. He's like, oh, really? So he was down on horsepower. He ended up qualifying the car, which was impressive. Mm-hmm. The guy can still drive. And that was it for me as far as that one goes. And then the next day, they're all in the pit area, and I hang out by the tire truck. That's where I sit. And I get a phone call from one of the crew guys, and they're like, you need to come to the garage. I'm like, why? And he's like, Rusty Turbush is here. He wants to talk to you. So you have to come here. I'm like, no, you tell Rusty Turbush to come where I am. Because I'm not walking, not be arrogant. I'm lazy. I don't want to walk there. I don't want to go there. And he came over and he asked if I would spot for his son. And apparently from what I got from the conversation, the kid's just starting his racing career.
Wow.
Maybe not so much. He could be racing Riverhead for a while, but this is like the first venture out. I'm not sure how much seat time he has. And the goal was to keep the fenders on it all day. And it was 100-lap, late model past super. What do they call them? Super late models or whatever. Mm-hmm. And he did good. He went a lap down. We got a lucky dog, and then he ended up 2 laps down. I felt bad for the kid because he was struggling to keep it just going, and he ended up. I think something broke. He ran out of gas with like 4 laps to go. So
I got dumped.
No, he didn't get dumped. And I spotted for Eric good there on the MRS race, but we blew up, so there's really not much to talk about there. Rowan
Panic won that race, though.
Yeah,
Rowan Panic, kind of a local guy. We kind of, he's.
He lives in New Jersey. He lives in New Jersey now.
Oh yeah, that's right. He does live in New Jersey.
He lives right over by New Jersey Speedway.
Yeah, he first race back from back surgery, and he wins. Good for Rowan.
I think you need those. Eric has I don't know the proper term. Eric loves those feel-good, Cinderella story kind of things. I mean, he'll chase those down any way that he can. So, I'm
an emotional guy.
If you're sick or injured, go to Eric, and he will, talk about you nonstop. Especially.
Well, and I'll shed a real tear.
And they did have the breakfast buffet open this weekend.
Ooh.
Did you make it to that if you didn't make it to Dunkin' Donuts?
I didn't make it anywhere because by the time I got to the spotter stand, the way the schedule was, I either had to be up there for one of the practices or the qualifying stuff between the 3 divisions, so I never went down. I had to stay up there all. I was up there.
Do they have a bathroom up there?
No, I did go to the bathroom once. From 12 o'clock to the first day from 12 o'clock to whenever the MRS race was over, like 6 o'clock at night. And then the next day from like 2 to, probably 12 to 5.
I'm just curious. Now, are you when you're spotting, like when you're actively spotting, not the in between? Do you sit? Do you stand? I mean,
I prefer to sit, but it always seems like the last person that comes over and sits down, he sits in front of me, and then as soon as the green flag, he stands up. You don't have to stand, but I don't stand. I don't sit on the top row because anybody that wants to stands behind me.
Right.
But there's always the one guy that's like anything else.
I wasn't sure because, for the most part, when we do our live shows, by the way, April 29th, Talladega, we're going to be doing a live show, River Rock. Be there or else. But Eric, I don't know if it's nerves. I don't know if it's just his way of presenting. I don't know if it's a different mental state for him. But I'm fine sitting, even during the live shows. Eric has to stand when we do a live show.
Do you stand in the booth at Wall?
Yeah, I usually do. The only time I would sit is like during an enduro, or if I'm just
when
Gary
when Defender cars are out there, you sit. See.
Well, no, just if it's a long one, if it's a really long one. But I don't know. I feel like my energy levels are higher, and I can project a little bit better, and I can stand a little bit more straight.
Does anybody else stand up there, like Earl Krause or anybody, or they sit down?
I think they typically stand. Sometimes Earl sits in the higher. We got like a high bar stool with a backrest on it, and he'll hang out in that. But I'm just so comfortable to standing, and I don't know. I guess you feel like a sense of power when you do that. It's I don't know. It's just a preference of mine. So even with the karting stuff, it's the same thing.
But
my goodness.
I was kind of curious because when the race is on and you got to be in, I think that like as much as I would want to sit, as much as my feet could be bothering me or something like that, after a long day, I would still have to stand through the race. So I don't. I mean, everybody's different. So some people. I mean, I would be too excited and too nervous if I was spotting for somebody.
Well, look at a prime example of what you're saying is. When Cup was like through the roof, NASCAR Cup race, it was through the roof. The drop of the green flag to the checker flag, those guys, the whole place would stand up the whole time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they don't even do that there anymore with that stuff. But
I just remember in the stands every time, as a little kid, it was like you knew when they were going to start or restart because all of a sudden I couldn't see anymore and I had to like stand up on top of the thing just to try to.
When I first started spotting there was not even where you had to be in a certain location. Like
you could be wherever.
You didn't have. It wasn't mandatory that you had the spotter.
Tim was expecting to be in the Goodyear blimp hovering over the track.
Now, I've
Just on
spotted.
the donuts trailer.
That's where I spot where I do at Wall Stadium. Is that the best place to spot? Probably not, but that's where I sat.
Yeah.
So that's where I started spotting for.
You're used to it. It's a comfortable spot to be in.
I used to sit in, Thompson used to sit in the grandstands or, wherever.
Yeah.
So I'm not, what I'm saying is I'm used to not having to be way up high and standing up. And
now, does you talked about with at least with the Cup Series, they have. That's the spotter section.
Uh-huh.
Now, does that trickle down to the tour, the Wayland, the NASCAR?
Yeah,
Wayland?
we have there. Every track we go to, we have a roped off area.
Okay.
In the grandstand.
Now, do you have to be there per the rules?
Yes.
Oh,
If there's no spotter there, your car doesn't go on the track.
Okay. Well, I wasn't sure if you could spot from on top of a, I don't know, shipping container.
Yeah, I mean, you can always put a dummy spotter. I don't want to call them dummy. A phantom spotter.
Someone has to check the headset,
somebody has to have communication up there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the real reason why you have a spotter section. This way, an official can grab you and say, "Hey, tell your driver this."
Which
so you do need somebody.
As much as I hate to say this, because I wouldn't have to want to go there. They really need that at Wall Stadium.
Right.
Like I've seen
that metal thing where they get like 12 people.
Yeah.
We call that the pig pen. I'm not going to the pig pen.
Right.
Even
but
when
you could send someone to the pig pen, like a Gasco, or somebody send him over there with the headset.
They need some
communication to your driver.
They need somebody there with an official. Even when when we ran the modified tour there, I put mine and Scott's cousin George there, and I spotted from where I spot today. So we had a phantom spotter back in the day.
If it was up to you, and let's say Wall did go to all right, we're gonna put in a spotter section, whatever. Where would you, for you? I'm not talking about what would be your best vantage point.
Vantage point.
Yeah, where would you want
in
to
a
be?
perfect world? If I could do whatever I want on top of the building that Eric's saying would probably be
top
good.
of the tower. Okay.
That because it's central
That'd
and it's
be cool,
high.
wouldn't it? Have all the spotters up there. That'd be awesome.
I think it'd be awesome. It'd be great for lightning strikes too. Unfortunately.
That's probably not going to happen, but yeah.
I was just curious what you would.
I can spot. I actually, if I can't spot where I normally sit, which is, if people that don't know, is more down turn one, is right before you walk. If you come through the ticket booth and you make a right, the other really good spot is right before the. Well, I always call it Carol's Goody Castle. What do they call that building now?
The tower.
The tower. Right before that, right where we used to sit as kids, right before the reserve section. That's a good place to spot.
Okay.
That's probably the best vantage point.
Currently, that you can actually. Okay. Well, I was just curious. All right. Now, a couple things we're going to tidy up here. We have Wall Stadium opening Saturday night. I mean, that's just. It's going to be huge, I think. I know that.
You know what, Josh? I agree. It is going to be. Last year, if you remember, opening night last year was huge. It was big. They ran out of food and everything. It was one of the biggest opening nights they had in a while. Man, the weather's calling for 78 degrees and sunny. I see.
Thank God.
I even see this
Too
being
hot.
bigger than last year. I think it's going to be a huge opening.
Yeah, I know. I think it's going to be a great thing. I know it's earlier than normal, so there may not be a few cars ready yet. That happens. I'm excited. I'm going to be there. Then Eric and I are going to be taking the trek out on Sunday to Evergreen, again, assuming everything works out weather-wise and all that, for their, I guess, technically the season opener. I know they had the Enduro already. I mean, it's going to be a long weekend for both Eric and I, probably longer for Eric. That's the only time.
I think we're both going to be working pretty hard. I'm pumped for Wall. I think all of us are kind of reeling to get back there. I missed both practice sessions, one for work, one because I was away.
Ditto.
And but I think especially with the off season everybody had, I think we're really looking forward to getting back to the racing portion of our program per se at Wall Stadium, and I'm really pumped for it. And the opportunity at Evergreen is unique. I love stock car racing. I love late model racing. I think it's the closest comparison that you could have to what you see on television. And they have a huge late model event scheduled. I think over 25 entries already, maybe up to around 28. I think was last time that I saw the entry list revised by our buddy Ted Groh.
Yep.
Ted's been a longtime fan supporter of us. We of course love the work that he does. Even more excited to work with somebody who has that much enthusiasm for their racetrack. And if Mother Nature cooperates, it could be a good week.
I'm excited because I'm going to be trying to do some filming for the event at Evergreen, and I'm really excited to hear you and him announcing together.
Yeah, I was throwing stuff around with him to see how he wants to do it. I mean, he could want me to.
You're going to step all over him. I know it.
No, whatever he wants, whatever he needs me to do, but I'll fill whatever role he wants. So we'll take it from there. But I'm excited.
Is it a hot dog roll?
No, I don't eat buns. Damn.
Oh, you're fun.
Damn.
Anyway, but seriously, Wall is gonna. I've had people messaging me, "Hey, you going? Are you gonna be there?" I mean, everybody seems to be really excited for this season, especially after the loss of Cliff and everything.
I always look forward to the first nights, like he was saying before, what the cars look like, the new cars.
Yeah.
My point is that via social media, the factory stocks this year, there's some beautiful factory stocks this year.
Let's hope they stay that way.
Well, they're not going to stay that way, but my point is, I think that's a division that actually grew over the winter instead of lost people. Yeah.
It's one of the few divisions that seems to be able to accomplish that, and I've never raced with better people. I mean, I'm very especially compared to like Scott. My world of racing and experience is very, very limited. I've done dirt, I've done snow, and I've done asphalt, but the group of people that I've raced with in that division, the way that we can all get along and talk and in reality race cleanly. Back at Turkey, I know that they've had a rough year previously, maybe rough 2 years. My mental calendar is still thrown off, but at Turkey Derby they ran some of the cleanest racing that I've seen in a while.
The perfect point of that is you guys usually run last or second to last.
Yeah.
If the modifieds run first, whenever the factory stocks are over, is when the people leave. Well, some people leave after the modifieds, but a lot of people stay for the factory stock race.
Yeah. Well, we've done everything we can to.
Fans.
It's just it's an incredible division. It provides incredible action for the fans and for the drivers. I mean, I'm having a blast out there.
One thing I think about sometimes, I mean, those cars are considered antiques now.
You can put
QQ plates on them.
Yes.
You guys are out there running. Like, at one time, that was somebody's pride and joy. They bought that car off the car lot. They took their family to Florida. And I would just think it would be cool, like, if whoever owned your car, if you won, some guy that's probably
look up the VIN.
60 years old now, you say, I just won a race in the car that you bought in 1978, Like that guy thinks that car's gone, but it's still alive.
Somebody lost their virginity in the back of that thing.
I mean, like Earl Krause announces this when we come down on the track. He says, "Here comes the American Steel." I think that's cool.
Yeah, I do love that.
Yeah, I love the American Steel thing. Plus, a lot of people, I race modifieds too and sportsmans and stuff like that. And a lot of people ask me, well, what's harder to drive? I'm like, modified's got to be harder to drive. It's so much more horsepower and faster. I'm like, no, modified's easy to drive compared to a factory stock. And they say, well, why is that? I said, a modified was purposely built to go around an oval track. My car that I race in the factory stock division was meant to go 75 miles an hour down the parkway. We're trying to make it turn, so that's the best way I explain that.
Yeah, I think former factory stock driver Stephen Lynch, not to be confused with the singer, he described it once as, basically everything you wanted to do on the parkway but couldn't. Is what you get to do in the factory stocks. And it might have evolved a little bit since then, but I mean, there's so much going on, and the way these guys can still gather it up and keep going, and it's just, I think it's by far the best division there. And sure, I'm biased. I'm not going to deny that, but I have no interest in going other. I know some people are like, oh, I'll start with this, and they want to graduate and go up through the levels to a higher, faster division. I never care about a modified or something like that. I love the factory stocks. I love being able to do what they do. I mean, I'm well past ever having a shot at anything bigger anyway. So enjoy it. I just think it's fun. And then Scott, after all this experience and literally traveling all around the country to race, has found this awesome home with the factory stocks and loves it. So, and he's there every week. You don't see him skipping out or ever. It's whether it's points or whether it's for fun. To me, it doesn't matter. He's there. He's a part of it, and everybody's having a good time.
It's funny you say that. I was thinking about that the other day. I mean, I started racing that division full time in 2012. I haven't missed a race since. I haven't missed a race there in 6 years. And not only haven't I not missed a race, I've raced the Enduros. I mean, they had all the Enduros there too. I never missed one of them either. I mean, I haven't missed a race there in 6 years, and I don't plan on missing one.
Yeah, I think the closest you came to missing a race is when you had to sit out the conclusion of the one.
Oh yeah, that was.
Yeah, that was whatever. I'm not going to, but I mean that's the closest you've come to.
Yeah.
But you even said to me the one time that it was the year that I finished fourth in points. You even said, because there was one night in my car I had transmission issues and I borrowed Hartwig lent me a car, and and that let me just stay in the points because I finished that night. And you were like, wow, that him lending you that car really helped. I was like, hell yes, it did. So, I mean, even you took note of that, which is, to me, really cool. So, I don't know. It's just awesome all the way around. Now, very similar is the Enduro Series. Scott, you're looking at Grandview?
Yeah, I'm going to race Wall Saturday. We're going to bring both cars to Walsingham Saturday. I'll be in the 09, and, of course, my wife Nancy will be in the 89. We'll race there. We'll have some fun. Hopefully get out of there in one piece. We'll go home that night. I'll wake up early in the morning. I'll unload the asphalt car, and I'll load my dirt car up. And then we'll probably leave around 9 o'clock in the morning and head out to Grandview Speedway. It's the opening event for the Outlaw Enduro Series. They have a lot of racing planned on that day. The Outlaw Enduro Series is also teamed up with the Blast from the Past and Vintage Car Club. They also have two 15-lap features for the vintage modifieds, which is a cool division. I mean,
especially at Grandview.
Yeah, it's old dirt cars, and they really race. It's old dirt cars, and they really race. They put on a good show.
Yeah.
It's really cool to watch them. Plus, we'll be there before. They're having twin 50-lappers for the 8-cylinder Enduros. That's be the races I'll be in. So
I've never heard of twin races for an Enduro, though. That's new to me.
Yeah, they sometimes they have 100-lappers. Sometimes they have twin 50s. This was originally advertised as a 100-lapper, which I kind of like better, but then they switched to the twin 50 format, which is fine. This way, if you have a problem, you can come in and
somebody can replace that starter that failed on them.
Yeah, or something, broke a hub, whatever, radiator overheating,
Yeah.
So we have twin 50-lappers, plus the 4-cylinders also there. They have twin 50-lappers, and they have a junk car race. And I think that's 50 laps too. So there's a lot of racing. It's only $10 to get in the grandstand. So if you're by Grandview Speedway in Bechtelsville, Pennsylvania, swing by. And if you guys get rained out at Evergreen or something on Sunday, shoot over to Grandview. It's not far from there. And
definitely. I was just going to ask Eric if we can be in two places at once.
Yeah.
I've tried that. Doesn't always work.
Anyway, so additionally, Eric, will the TQs be running on opening night?
No, they will not. In fact, their first trip at Wall isn't until May 26th. However, some news that did come down on the ATQ MRA front includes the fact that they tested the last couple of weeks, most notably this past Saturday, with the return of the top wing that they used to run when they ran on the big track.
You almost said rear wing.
I almost did. But there was actually a press release on the ATQMRA website which stated, in conjunction with the staff at Wall Stadium Speedway, the Hoosier Mid-Atlantic ATQMRA, presented by VP Racing, will host an organized test this Saturday, which was back then April 7th. The test is expected to host many ATQMRA competitors, including a number of all-stars that have competed for quite some time. And they're going to test these wings for the first time in 3 years at the Speedway. The concept of running wings on Wall Stadium's inner oval has been discussed privately between the ATQMRA board members and Speedway officials over the current offseason. The discussion continues to revolve around a stern focus to enhance both the safety and quality of on-track product at the Speedway. However, to date, at the time of this release, which was April 4th, an aero package has not been decided on for the upcoming May 26th ATQRA event. However, data from the upcoming tests should give both series and track officials a better picture on whether to race with or without the wing for the 2018 season at Wall.
That's
so
a mouthful.
something to watch. Yeah, it's a story to watch as it continues to unfold. I know a lot of drivers that I've talked to privately told me that they want the wing on the car because they feel that with the tighter confines, increased car count, increased speeds on the inner track, the wing still gives you a little bit more handling ability in the car, and also a little bit more protection if the car gets upside. So
I was going to say, yeah, I could see the cushioning aspect because it's aluminum, I believe, and so it'll crumple and fold and give them a little bit more cushion when they land upside down, which I'm all for it in that aspect. But at the same time, I mean, are they going fast enough? Scott's going to kill me for this, but do they need to go faster? Will this increase? It's got to increase the cornering speed.
Yeah, race cars always go faster.
yeah.
Thanks, Scott.
I'm interested to see how it plays out, and of course, I'm even more interested to see how our relationship with the ATQRMRA plays out as their season will be kicking off April 21st, so we'll have some more involvement there. Of course, we're dealing with our buddy Kyle Tarasca, Buddy Slow, Joey Bailey, amongst many others to make that all possible.
Well, I know Joey Bailey's a big.
Shortly.
Joey Bailey wants the wing and the big track. I know he wants that, but he's young and Joey, I love you, but dumb and able to have no fear with all that. Hell, just watching the I mentioned it I think last year with the IndyCar visor cam when I think they were testing, believe it or not, at Phoenix, and I was like, yeah, nope, I will stick to a factory stock.
Are there any?
Yeah, I love those cars with the wings. I hope they do go, even if they do stay on the inner track, which is fine with me. I hope they do go back to running the wings. I like the wings, and like you say, when they do flip, I think it really cushions the blow.
I think it'll help the fans too with having the numbers up and a little bit more visible.
They're just cool looking with the wings on. They really are cool looking with the wings on. I hope they go do with the wings. You know, and when I was at practice Saturday, I did notice they were there, and I did notice they had wings on it. It didn't dawn on me that Eric just said why they were there and what they were doing. I forgot they ran the inner ovals without the wings.
Well, we're going to have a few of the TQ drivers on, probably quarter midgets too. We already had one. Well, technically we had a Champ Kart driver, but
no, we had a quarter midget driver, right? Ryan Couln't.
Coulthard. Yes, little Ryan Coulthard.
Yes.
I've known his parents all my life, and I still can't pronounce their last name.
I had a hard time with that. Monjo, when I first got started, I butcher about. Wait till in the world of karting, man, I probably mutilate about 12 names a weekend, and there's a lot of European flair in that stuff, and I can't. My New York language just messes it up.
I have a Wall Stadium question before we get off a Wall. Is there any graduates from the sportsman division going up to the modifieds? Did anybody know?
I hope not.
Truex.
How is he?
Truex. What's Tyler? Tyler Truex is going up to the modifieds. Other than that, no, I haven't heard of any.
Yeah, it's this feels like, and maybe because I haven't been able to make it to practice, or maybe it's just the fact that the season's starting earlier. I feel like there's a lot more hush hush going on this season. Like I feel like we don't know
on like
what everybody's doing yet.
On whose end?
Like on the drivers, independent drivers and teams. Like, as far as who's doing what, I've only seen a couple of paint schemes. I only know what a couple of guys are doing. I know a couple things privately that some people have only told me in confidence, off the record, not to be discussed. So it's like just scheduling stuff, and I just feel like that everybody's holding their cards really close to their chest this season, which should make for an entertaining year, at least
they're
for my
saving
team.
it for the show.
So,
you don't want to talk about it until we invite them on the show. Which, if you want to be on the show, we would love to have you, but you got to message us or something
and show up.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Not like Blake the Flake. But he's okay.
Or Showtime.
So
yeah, I left Jimmy Blewett and came right here, so he had no excuse. He could have rode with me tonight, but
see.
We do want to give a quick shout out to the other two local New Jersey tracks that do have things going on this weekend. One of them is New Egypt Speedway, which is scheduled to have modifieds, Mid-Atlantic Sprint Car Series, Sportsman, Street Stocks, 4-cylinders, and Rookie Sportsman. That's a full racing docket for them, with their scheduled start time being at 6 p.m. on the dirt track. Also, Bridgeport Speedway has some action scheduled for Sunday, April 15th, with a 3 p.m. start time, and that will include members of the United Racing Club 360 Sprint Car Division, Big Block Modified, 602 Crate Sportsman, as well as rookie racers. That will be scheduled for, again, 3 p.m. at the Bridgeport Speedway. Pitted looks like adult admission is $25. Kids get in for $10. Back on the New Egypt side, it's a $20 general admission. So a lot of racing this weekend, and as we said, looks like the weather's going to cooperate. So
Sam,
the cops are coming.
Really, Sam?
That's usually something you hear in New York.
Yeah.
You know?
I have one more. Are we done with I have one more local thing.
All right, go for it.
A lot of people, how do you get your kids involved in racing? How do you how do you get them in Sunday series? It's free to get in the grandstands. Bring your kids out, see if they want to do it. It's a great way to get into racing. And
yeah.
Sam just bailed on us.
The cops are coming, boy.
I didn't want Claire to know the cops were here. Oh, hey, Sam.
We started, I think, pick 8 open at 9, but we usually don't get on the track between 10:30 and 11. And then we're usually...
What times do you run to, Tim? Are you there until about 4 or 5 o'clock? Or?
It depends. Usually Alan's good if he'll let the little kids run first. We don't have to stay for the whole thing, in the summertime when it gets hot. We're usually out of there by 3 o'clock.
That's not bad at all.
Yes. Yeah, they're open.
Good.
So it should be good. I'm excited. Go-karts are ready. As my brother mentioned before, I bought a new race car holder thanks to...
keeps asking me to sponsor me.
No thanks to Riggleman.
No, actually...
Then he doesn't put my picture on Facebook for Siblings Day. So
actually, well, you didn't either. Actually,
it's after midnight, so it's all over now.
Actually, Scott went over there and initially took pictures for me to look at it, so he did help me with that. So yeah, I'm excited. Everything's ready to go. Go-karts are ready. Jimmy Blewett's kid's racing again. Mark Rogers' kid was there last week for practice. He'll be there. It should be a good time.
I tell you what, it really is a good time, the Sunday series. I've been over there a couple of times to help Tim and the kids, and it's cool seeing the next generation coming up. Like you mentioned, Jimmy Blewett's son and Mark Rogers' son. There's a lot of racers on that race Saturday night.
And we were talking about there's a factory stock guy, right? His nephew's racing?
John Bowers. John Bowers is starting his nephew out in courts. So John's having a lot of fun with that, too. He actually gave the go-kart to his nephew for Christmas, and there was a cool video on his Facebook of them bringing the go-kart out and putting it under the Christmas tree.
Oh, yeah, I did like that video, yeah. That was pretty cute.
It's free to get in the grandstands, like I said. It doesn't cost you any money. Just come out. The kids, even if you want to, just come to a local race, if you bring a new friend, if they don't like it, you can leave in 5 minutes, and it doesn't cost you anything.
I enjoyed the racing. I enjoyed the Sunday series racing. Those kids put on good shows, man. They really race hard.
It's fun.
Yeah, I had the opportunity to work as a corner worker with that. A lot of it is just, being there to try to help the kids and get them going in terms of a racing career. And it really is such a positive environment. Alan Brenner, Chrissy Ferry, John Russell, Roger Nickerson, anybody else who I forgot. Just so many people.
Deb Gall's real big into it.
Yeah, Debbie Gall, Greg McGowan. A lot of people donate their time, effort, and energy to give these kids a place to race. And some of them who may not elect to go the quarter midget route, which, speaking of, the Garden State Quarter Midget Club will be in action this weekend as well with their Garden State Classic.
Place this weekend.
That will be both Saturday and Sunday, starting around 10 a.m. We talked about, drivers like Brandon Grosso, now an ARCA competitor, Joey Bailey, now an ATQ MRA competitor. They came from quarter midget racing, so that's another platform of motorsports that you can check out.
All Jr. came from quarter midget racing.
So,
Paulie,
yeah. We
got to get Paulie on for an interview.
Little Paulie?
Yeah. We got
to get Paul Harwick Jr. on. He's the big dirt sportsman racer now, too. He's got a dirt sportsman car again.
I'll give him $100 for that car. That's the best offer.
Wait a week, he'll probably be selling it for $100.
While we're in the local thing, has Bridgeport announced are they putting on racing at the new track that they built there at all?
I think they started with that.
I think World Outlaws or something. Yep.
Yeah. So that's already, I think, doing its thing. So yeah.
Yeah.
Well, to wrap things up, we have a live show everyone has to pay attention to.
We got to do what have we learned yet?
I'm getting to that. I'm working easy now. Somebody's excited.
That's because Eric's girlfriend left in tears. That's what I learned.
So April 29th.
Hey, Scott, they all do.
Oh wait,
all do.
I have something. I'm sorry. Go ahead. You finish first.
I was just saying. Live show, April 29th, River Rock. For Talladega, I know a couple of the dirt tracks are running and all that. But it's going to be a lot of fun. There's going to be prizes, giveaways, the whole deal. We had a huge gathering of people last time, and everybody had such a good time. We're going to have interviews. Yeah, if you want to get on the show, that's one of the best ways to do it. You can just go up there and give Eric the sad puppy dog eyes, and he'll be like, all right, just come on.
And contact us, please.
Where can they reach us, Sam?
Info at the RPMpodcast.com. Message any of us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, SoundCloud, iTunes, Nick Rendo's Snapchat. I mean,
please
figure
do that.
something out.
Yeah.
Eric Brennan's Tinder account, wherever you want to find it.
Swipe left.
And with that, what have we learned today, fellas? I'm going to start.
I got one.
All right, go ahead, Scott.
Phoenix sells their IndyCar tickets in tiers for the grandstands, and Eric Brennan's dates leave in tiers.
Tim, what did you learn?
I learned that Sam and Scott both shop at the same store for the same drink, banana smoothies or whatever they're drinking over there.
Protein shakes. That's what we live
on. Eric, what did you learn?
I got two. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. has been giving out the Sunny D, and apparently Josh plans on tagging my mom later. So. With my permission.
Of all things. Sam, what did you learn?
Alrighty. I learned that NASCAR has a rogue nut problem. I also learned that gray areas are where all the fun happens. Eric's first dates always go wrong. Stenhouse and Sunny D have a tight relationship. American Airline needs to lower their baggage cost. However, Eric does have enough baggage. And as per Eric Brennan, Stephanie Brennan likes to be tagged.
Oh my!
As per Phoenix, I drew a little desert.
That's why your head was down this whole time.
I'm so tempted to use a drop that I have, but I won't because Eric will kill me.
You know what? At this point, go ahead. This is an episode Mom will be proud of. So
I have
a
mom story to tell her.
Sam, what was the last thing?
Stephanie Brennan likes to be tagged.
Oh, you mean anal?
Oh boy.
You know what? Wait, full disclosure, if anybody here knows my mom, she'll laugh at that. She definitely will. So
all right, Tim, do yours.
You guys are always Scott likes to tell stories about himself, on here. You guys always
I haven't noticed.
So I don't know if for the listeners and you guys, you remember he was telling them the story about when he took my dad's Ram truck to get that canoe for that guy?
Yes.
Well, when I went, this is 2 days ago, I drove my Suburban to pick up the cube van that my brother wouldn't tow back to the junkyard for me. So
I offered.
So I had where the cube van was to where the junkyard was literally 3 miles, So I had my mom came over. We're driving from point A to point B. She goes, and that old stern mother voice that she used to do when we got in trouble, she goes, "So, when did Scott tow this canoe with Dad's Ram truck?" Here I am, 47 years old. My mom's chastised. I'm like, "Mom, I have no idea." I'm like, "You're asking the wrong son." I'm like, Scott said that, not me. I must have been sleeping when that was going
on.
I don't even remember when it was, but I was probably about 15 when we did that. My friend was 17. He had his driver's license. I think my parents were at some banquet or something like that when we took the Ram truck and got the canoe with it.
That's fantastic.
So here it is, 35 years later. Scott got me in trouble.
Oh, it's awesome. That it really is.
One thing we didn't get to, which I'll just leave it to the viewers if they want to enjoy it for their own well-being. If any of you are wondering what Stephen Wallace is up to, you can check out some footage that took place at the North-South Showdown at the Fairground Speedway in Nashville. It was running in conjunction with the ARCA race. An incident between Wallace and Mason Mingus on lap 11 is what created some conflict. There's some video that was caught by a former ARCA radio announcer, Tim Clegg. There's also a story up at shorttrackscene.com, courtesy of Matt Weaver. It's entertaining, to say the least. So,
I tell you what, though, I mean, Steve Wallace, he defended himself a little bit on his Instagram today. He put the video up of Mason Mingus getting into the back of him, doing the same thing that Steven did to him at the next corner, but Mason ended up wrecking the car. I tell you what, I don't really care about the fighting and the rumble in the pits. I really don't like seeing that at racetracks. But I'm really happy that Mason didn't get hurt. I mean, he hit square. I mean,
yeah, that was.
He got it's like he overcorrected the car, and the car finally grabbed and hooked. And when it hooked, it sent him straight into the wall. And like we were talking about how great Nashville is, and they don't have softer walls there. He hit a ton, and he hit square. So I was happy to see Mason wasn't hurt.
Yeah, that was a brutal hit, and I mean, it should be noted that Steven didn't hook him head on, like you said, Scott. Mason kind of overcorrected big time, and then it just went. It spilled out to the pits, and it was a brawl. It was you don't get a brawl that good at a racetrack that often. I had one in the bar in Phoenix I was at a couple days ago, but that was about it. So, with that,
I didn't go yet.
Sorry. Oh, wait, you still didn't tell us what you learned yet?
No, I didn't. Tim had to go on.
So it's my fault.
Today I learned that Sam enjoys checking my underwear. I learned that Stenhouse's new girlfriend is thirsty. Eric needs his meat.
Always.
I'm going to tag Eric's mom, and she will love it.
That's like the common denominator here tonight.
I learned that Tim did more than one job at Stafford.
Thompson.
Thompson. I'm sorry. My mistake. I learned that modified drivers want to be on top at Thompson.
Normally.
Well, now they're on the bottom now, too. So.
one driver likes I also learned that Eric only knows what a couple of drivers are doing privately.
Yeah, only a few.
Now you can...
You know, Josh, you're not a huge modified fan. I'm just curious. Have you ever seen modifieds other than Wall Stadium?
Yeah. All right. Disclaimer. The first one I'm going to mention, I think everyone knows is terrible, and that was when they did the backstretch at Daytona.
I like that. I like that.
No. I like that they were using it, but the racing ended up not being that great because it was just flat.
You were there for that?
I wasn't there. I watched it on TV or on the.
Oh, TV.
Yeah.
Now I'm talking about live. Have you ever seen a modified race in person other than Wall Stadium? Because Wall Stadium's a great racetrack. Don't get me wrong, but it's not a great modified track.
Trying to think. Well, I've seen dirt modifieds here and there.
Yeah, I'm telling you, Eric, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think if we ever took Josh to Thompson and showed him a modified race, he'd leave there a modified fan.
Oh yeah, no, and you know what? We're gonna. I'll check. We'll go to a Wednesday show if we have to.
Even a perfect place for Josh to go because he loves Fender. He loves Fender race cars. Is if they're open, and I guess in Waterford, because they have like 4 divisions of Fender cars, and then they run the SK cars there, whatever they call them there.
Right.
And the modified racing at Waterford's excellent.
Okay, I'll go.
All right, so that's settled. We're all going to Thompson, and we'll see you all there.
So much for an hour-long show tonight, huh, guys? We really knocked it out of the ballpark with that.
I'm curious what this is going to look like. The RPM podcast people are going to be well represented at all racetracks. Of course, I am extremely excited to get back in action at Wall Stadium Speedway and to partner up with Evergreen, hoping that Mother Nature cooperates. We're all going to be everywhere. We'll see you at the races, and we hope you all come back next time. On behalf of Sam, Josh, Tim, Scott, and myself, Eric, wish you all a spectacular racing weekend. We'll see you next time. The RPM podcast. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Sounds like an end of a cheap porno.
Go to Wall.
My bad, John.